Yes, finally we have it. Nigerians, we finally have an answer. And hey, we've cracked the code. Thank you very much, Lagos. Thank you very much, Nigeria. Thank you very much, the world. Thank you very much, Donald Trump. To all our dear viewers and listeners who haven't heard this yet, please relax. Just calm down and let us be the ones to break the news to you this morning from our very credible sources. Now, are you ready? But wait. Why are we acting surprised? Didn't our dear Chief of Staff, Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa already say weeks ago? Yes, he did. But let's be honest, at this time, or at that time, most of us, we sneered at it, jeered at it, and chuckled at his submission. Foreign elements are funding Boko Haram, he said. And what did we do? We rolled our eyes, dismissed it as another episode of Defense Forces Say the Darndest Things. And we moved on. In fact, at the time that clip hit social media, the entire world slowed down for a second, not in surprise, but in what could be described as disgust at the Army's incompetence and blame-shifting game. Yes, I must confess, even I, at that moment, thought that the general was just exhibiting the honored time response of ineptitude that the Nigerian security agencies have so painstakingly built their reputation on. But now, the rain has cleared, our eyes are clear, and we can see clearly. And what do we see? The name in bold, USAID. Oh yes, my people, the United States Agency for International Development has been fingered in the funding of Boko Haram. Now, let's take a fun trip through memory lane, shall we? Thank you very much. Join me here. For years, we've thrown billions of dollars, countless military operations, and God knows how many security summits at this insurgency thing. Yet it persists. And now it all makes sense. When you have the same people funding both sides of the fight, how do you expect to win? It's like someone playing Call of Duty where the guy who owns the console keeps switching teams just so that he can prolong the entire game. I like doing that sometimes myself. So what's the implication of all of this? Well, not much. Just the realization that we've been scammed on an international level. But what's new? And speaking of scams, let's talk about the master of remixes himself, Donald J. Trump, maybe my new American uncle. And yes, he's back in action. Ladies and gentlemen, in just a few weeks, he has managed to remix the entire world into another season of America, making it great again, season 2. Under his influence, we see countries suddenly scrambling to end wars, regulate trade policies, build relationships, and get this, demand accountability. And that's where we fall in as Nigeria. Now, let's bring it back home. Where exactly did all the USAID money go in Nigeria? What body was responsible for keeping track of these donations? Who approved the allocations? What projects were they supposedly funding? And most importantly, is there an actual money trail that can be followed to identify who exactly has been enjoying the foreign aid windfalls? Well, my people, it seems like at this point, we're close to a major breakthrough. But every single time we get to this precipice of exposing the grand corruptors behind Nigeria's woes, something or someone magically makes it disappear. But this time, we must hope that it doesn't slip through our fingers again. Because my people, we are now at that Mawaput joints. You know that one you like to go to, where staring into that big giant stew pot, hoping to scoop up the juiciest piece of meat as she stares it. Yeah, I suggest you do shaki, 2 pieces of liver, and 1 roundabout. That's my formula here. And boy, Trump stared that stew for us, didn't he? Now, even the most ridiculous claim of foreign elements funding terrorism in Nigeria by the Chief of Defense Staff no longer seems ridiculous after all, now does it? I bet you're no longer laughing. But in any case, let's calm down. On a lighter note, has anyone seen Tubaba? No, seriously, Mama, they find them. I beg. I'm serious. Word on the street is that our loved or beloved African Queen crooner has pulled a disappearing act in the midst of his marriage and remarriage wahala. Or maybe it was just February 14th, I don't know. 1 minute, we're watching Annie's social media meltdowns. The next, we hear that the Dibia family has written to the DSS to help locate him. Nigeria, the gifts that keeps on giving. But don't worry, dear Nigerians. We're on the lookout even here at News Central. I mean, even if we can find the USAID's money, I mean, who's to say we can't find two, Baba? Not a small thing. No worry, we'll find them. Just chill, Mama Idibia. We're coming. Yeah. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Breakfast Extra. Over to you, Judith the TV. Judith, where is thine brother, Two-Face Idibia?
What was Cain's response?
What was that again? Am I my brother's keeper?
There we go. There you have your answer. You have your answer.
Hey, everybody's looking for him, and I think we should be on our toes as well, looking for him, searching under every leaf or every little cranny. We'll find him. Don't worry.
I'm looking for money. If you know where, if it's under that leaf, I'll find it.
It will come.
They should put a bounty on his head and see if I won't produce him.
Thank you.
There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's kick off the show. Welcome to Breakfast Extra.
And once again, a very good morning to you and welcome to Breakfast Extra. We have a dynamic lineup for you as usual. We've got our big report, our big story, Better You segment, our Wellness Central. We're covering everything from security to literature and global tourism to Africa's leadership and, of course, matters of the heart. And we begin with the big report today where we explore how the NNPCL is partnering with Kennywood in its fight against vandalism. The big story will flip the pages literally as we examine Nigeria's dwindling reading culture. And we also will dive into an explosive development as USAID and Nigeria's terrorism problem. A U.S. congressman has made shocking allegations linking USAID funding to Boko Haram. An investigative journalist, David Hundeyin, and governance advocate Awar Asfanjani will help us unpack the claims and potential fallout. Then, in the spirit of global movement, we'll mark Global Tourism Resilience Day, and our extra special segment tackles the silent rise of divorce stemming off the Two-Face Idibia instance. Oh, there's so much more as always to get into, but first, as always, let's look into the major headlines in today's dailies. I would let Mazino come in, but he's still drying off his face.
Yeah, I know.
So let's just get started very quickly as it dries off his face. The very first headline, very first newspaper we're taking is the Punch for a Sunday. The Sunday Punch newspaper here. The very first one that comes at you is North divided over Tinubu re-election as leaders take sides. You can find that story on page 3. Core Northerners rally against President, hint at new movement. Minority groups back Tinubu. That's all that you can find there. All that story there is on page 3. At the top there, USAID calls for probe spread over alleged Boko Haram funding. You can find that story on page 5. NNPCL, Dangote refinery trade wars over alleged substandard fuel. You can find that story on page 3. President of Fair and Treatment of Aregbesola, that's from the ex-governor's group chair, Adesiji. That story is on page 9. 2 Lagos policemen arrested as car dealer dies in custody. You can find that story on page 6. Husbands of female soldiers have no power over them. Should they have power? What it was is that? A barracks in their house? I can find that by a retired major. You can find that story on page 24. 109-day darkness, how UCH doctors attend to patients with torchlight. You can find that story on pages 16 and 17. Choir cleric dismembers 25-year-old Facebook girlfriend.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, goodness.
I'm sorry,
me.
did I come out? That's shocking.
That is, well...
Is that the second time we heard a story like that?
Yeah, I want to say it's not new, is it?
Oh, no, but man, that's just shocking that it's a thing that seems to be recurring, and then we're having that in the news repeatedly. So that means there's more that's happening we don't know about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in any case, we have to move on to the next paper now, which is the Sunday Independent. Now, oil exploration, FG moves to return to Ogoni faces hurdles, and FG military draw flack over terrorists' de-radicalization policy. Okay, what did you think about the de-radicalization policy? Well, the one where they told that they had 800 former insurgents who are now being rehabilitated and reintegrated into society.
I don't want to
Where
know
do
my
you
take
stand
on
on
this
that one?
There is no such thing as de-radicalization.
You believe one's a radical, always a radical? Yeah.
No, so
yeah.
it's much more nuanced than that. I don't think that in terms of whether radicalization and being de-radicalized, I don't think that is really the crux of the issue here, because when you think about the terrorists and what they're doing and why they're doing it, it's a completely different conversation. They don't want to be radical for just the sake of being radical. They're not juveniles. These are people who left their lives, and they have a cause. They believe in something.
So, but you think that it's going to be very difficult to get them to stop believing in that, because it's religious, whether you like it or not. Religion is a very passionate thing.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So that's what I mean by they can't be de-radicalized.
Everyone's got varying, differing opinion. Personally, I think man can change. I just think if you provide them with everything they need, people are closer to God when they need something. Being closer to God means that you'll go to war for God. But if you have everything, light, power, job, money, trust me, your need for God begins to dwindle. And I'm sorry that this sounds like as if I'm taking away people from religion, but it's the truth. The only reason why we hold fast to certain things is because, I believe in this thing, and the only reason why you actually believe in it is because of a certain kind of need that you have that makes you want God to help you bring it.
It's when you watch all those prayer things. I had because I went back home and my folks were watching it, and I was watching them as they were watching it, and notice how the prayer points were very, they were requests for a better, simpler life.
And because of that, they will be very staunch churchgoers.
I was praying for visa to go to America. Why are you going? If your country really works, you really need to pray for a visa.
Or your pastor says, continue to trust in God. You will continue to pay homage to God. You will bring money. Then we take advantage of religion in Nigeria, and that's exactly what the entire
religion is a white man's
thing is about. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Let's get back to the Sunday Independence. Pa Ayo Adebanjo Oni celebrates passage of a true Yoruba leader here on New Central TV. For Breakfast Extra, we have a eulogy at the end of the show, which we'll be giving for the former and late Pa Ayo Adebanjo. South Zone of PDP suspends secretary over alleged misconduct, and Nigerians alarmed by CBN's hike in ATM charges. Who cares, I say? They say action will cause more hardship once NAS to prevail on Apex Bank to drop policy. We don't use the ATMs. I think I established this yesterday. I really don't care much for that piece of news. It's okay, make it 300 naira. That's my opinion. Gather your pitchforks and knives and come at me. I don't care, but the fact is, we don't use the ATMs anymore. Finally, for Sunday Independence, FG military draw flag. I think I told that one already. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much all of it, isn't it?
That's
for Sunday Independence. Move on to our next paper, shall we?
Yes.
And the next one is the Sunday Tribune. At the very top there, $150 million bribe allegation made against 3 members, not House of Reps. Spokesman answered, I just love the way, what's his name, Gambarian is coming for all of them. He said, y'all traumatized me, so I will sing like a bird.
Oh, yes.
I will sing like a bird.
He told how much weight he lost?
He said how much weight he lost, the treatment he received in detention. And he's naming names.
Yeah, but then again, sometimes when you go through those things, you want to add a bit of spice and garnish into your storytelling, and that makes it implausible. So
I believe him.
The laws might not take it.
I believe him. After that video circulated on social media of that ex-governor that was collecting dollars, I believe him.
Well, but there's truth in any case. There might be.
The PDP's internal wrangling gets messier. South Zonal Secretary suspended over unauthorized statements. That story there is on page 6. More encomiums for Pa Ayo Adebanjo. He was a paragon of friendship towards Igbo Ohaneze. You can find the story on page 4 and page 5. A guardian of Yoruba ideals, and that's from the Ooni. He stood for people's rights, democracy, and that's from the PDP. We've lost a germ kingmaker. That's from Idoko. He was an exemplary patriot, and that's from the CUP, C-U-P-P. On the bottom there, more story about Pa Ayo Adebanjo. Tribute, exit of Mr. federalism. That's where it is on page 2. Ogun CP intercepts 20 youths with weapons on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. That's where it is on page 20. On page 6.
I mean, it's just next door. They have weapons, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. That's just next door to Lagos.
Right.
So it's coming home.
Scary stuff. Experts raises alarm, says Nigerian, says children, I beg your pardon, account for 7.27% cancer cases in Nigeria. More kids are down with leukemia. You can find the story on page 8. At the bottom there, revealed what article others told OBJ at Abeokuta meeting. And the story is on pages 6 and 11. And that's it for the Sunday Tribune.
All right, checking up what we have next. Let's see. We're going to the Nation newspaper for a Sunday. PDP crisis. Police probe alleged forgery of party's constitution. South-South Zonal Secretary suspended over unauthorized statements. Former Kaduna Governor Yero, ex-senators, others dump PDP. Join the APC because they're the ruling party. Woohoo. The defectors from party driven by stomach infrastructure, says Tambuwal. I couldn't agree more. Nigeria leads push for African credit rating agency at AU Summit. We'll talk about that later today. And ICPC seeks forfeiture of 1.3 billion naira for Kaduna Light Rail. At the bottom for the Nation, Binance executive insists on bribery allegations. And the writer there says, "Ooh, too tiny for me to see, unfortunately. I beg your pardon. My apologies." Obasa heads to court over removal as Lagos Speaker. It's the one from last week where everybody was jittery and everything. You had to pen that notes to the presidency. Please, sir, we did our job. We're sorry if it hurt you. Like little kids. But then again, dismembered body of Kwara student found in home of Facebook friend. You took that one earlier. Scary stuff there. That's it for the front page of the Nation newspaper. What else do we have?
Sad stuff indeed.
We're doing another one more paper this morning, and that would be The Matrix.
The Matrix. What's his name? No system collapse has occurred in 2025. TCN.
Easy lie. No, easy lie. Easy lie. I haven't had lights with the column. I haven't had power at my parents for, I think it was about a week. You're telling me that wasn't crash. All through my environs, my neighborhood, it's on and off, touch and go.
Yeah.
It's rubbish. I
don't mind that.
Listen.
Maybe it's semantics. I think it's semantics.
Everything did not crash.
No crash.
Everything did not crash.
Let's not get it said. No system collapsed completely.
There's still lights in Claro.
Okay. I'm certain that it's semantics. Well, moving on. Mother of Miss Universe Nigeria arrested in South Africa. Impeached Lagos Speaker Obasa sues Assembly, demands reinstatement. At the bottom there, Tambuwal slams PDP defectors, says they are driven by stomach infrastructure. And we must come together to ease out APC, and that's from Tambuwal there. Kenyan athlete Edwin Kibet wins 2025 Lagos City Marathon. This is his second consecutive win, and he got $50,000.
You won it the last time?
No, he won that. He won it in 2023.
Okay.
So second consecutive. So he came back to claim his prize again. So now 50,000 naira.
Kenyan, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know why they're exceptional runners?
I kind of know the answer, but also
areas.
Yeah.
Well, the reason is that education. It's education.
Yeah.
I'll explain.
Because they have camps.
Well, not camps. Well, this is it. They have hills and roads and paths and mountains and stuff like that, and schools are often very far away from home. So to get to school early, you have to run to school. So you're already being trained as a kid on how to be a runner, how to endure. So when Kenyans beat people when it comes to races or marathons and stuff like that, I say ban them from our marathon. Let Nigerians win.
They should have a different category. Is that what you said?
That makes
Kenyans
sense.
and Ethiopians together.
Kenyan and Ethiopian category.
Yeah.
Nigeria,
let's see the best. West Africans, one place, because your men always have the big rib, the big middles.
The big what?
The big middle.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant something else.
The rotund. Yeah. So they should be one side. East Africans to the left. You know what I mean? West Africans. Congratulations to you, Mr. Kibet. Congratulations. $50,000. Should I send my bank account? Okay, moving on. Moving on to more here from the Matrix. We sourced petrol from Dangote Refinery, and that's from NNPCL. Says viral content misleading, unfounded. threatens legal action against individuals attempting to tarnish its image. Fuel prices differ across stations due to logistics and market factors. Then Bruce defends Rubadu challenges Binance executive to lie detector test.
Uncle.
Missing choir student found dismembered in home of Facebook friend. China applauds African leaders as AU summit commences. Lord, do your thing. DJ Copy prays for marriage. I know. Don't say. Just keep it moving. Let's just keep it moving. Well, congratulations to Edwin Kibet again, and also congratulations to Mohammed Ali Yusuf. Hopefully I didn't mix his name. He is Djiboutian, and he just won the chairmanship for the AU. He bit out Raila Odinga. So congratulations to him.
Love the name Odinga.
Odinga.
So that's it for the papers. The dailies there, front pages, everything are brought to you by us here for Breakfast Extra, Mazzino and Judith. We're kicking off the show next. Do stay tuned. Welcome to the Strips. It's Mo Mazzino standing next to the TV on your TV this morning. But I want to say something. First of our montage that starts the Strips, I think it's perfect for a series. I don't know what it could be called, but it's grand. I like it. That's not being modest for New Central. In any case, let's do the Strips for today. And we have very interesting strips that hit newspapers all through the week. Last week, we'll be taking a couple. This one is the interesting one. Okay, who it might be sitting down on a pile of lawsuits from the same agency, SERAP. Judith, by the way, I forgot to bring Judith in on this one. I'll be doing Judith, sorry, Navis. Judith, I need your help here when it comes to this one. SERAP sues Tinubu again. These people never hear anything. They're here again. They don't know. It's not the first time, apparently. They're suing this time over, I think, Tinubu's, there's a reluctance to actually bring to book or to account certain contractors that were giving or that took contracts from 31 MDAs and parastatals and have done nothing. Bring them to book, sue them, or, let's find them. Nothing is being done. He's like, I got other businesses to handle, so wait your turn. Whenever the time comes, we'll do that. I don't know. This is also an implication on the Nigerian judicial system.
Boom.
Yeah, you get me now, Judith.
Boom. Yeah, you just said it. You really just hit the nail on the head. It's really it's an indictment on the judicial system because SERAP has been putting out lawsuits. They've been suing the government for a very, very long time. If you want to think about it, to begin with, as far as I'm sure it goes far back, but even Muhammadu Buhari, they sue that man to the heavens above. You know what I mean? Like any small thing, they have sued him.
What?
And we don't. And it's always dismissed. There's something they always. And these are they hit the nail on the head when it comes to the issues that they raise. Accountability is one. But those are issues that need to be discussed. Transparency, accountability, and just how you're shrouding certain things and certain processes, and then if the judiciary is kicking it out.
I'm not implicating anybody here, I hope, but you have to wonder exactly why these suits keep coming and why the person in question here is doing absolutely nothing. Is anybody benefiting from these contractors not doing their jobs? I only asked the question. I didn't say anything else.
If you ask me,
you will not make me dance on live TV. Let's move on now to our next strip for today, this morning. Very interesting ones all through the week. Where is it? I thought we changed it. Let's switch. Our next one. Yes, the grand reveal. I enjoyed this one when I saw it. It was so dramatic. J. Trump pulling the shroud from off of it. Now we finally know exactly who it is, and it's no Nigerian or even African culprit. It's American.
That's Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam is perhaps responsible for all the wars that we have when it comes to the asymmetric nature of our insurgency in Nigeria. Where are they getting the funding from? Where are they getting the monies from? Last month, remember the CDS, Chief of Defense Staff, Christopher Musa, telling that they asked him on if I think it was Al Jazeera, and they asked him, hey, Who's funding it? He said foreign funding. Foreign. And we all laughed. Judith, didn't you laugh?
I didn't laugh.
No, Judith, I did. I was like, come on now. That's such a ridiculous response. That's what I said. Judith, you did too.
I didn't
laugh. You thought it, at least.
No.
Okay. In any case, after this came out, when Trump actually said, or was it, what's his name? Can't remember his name. Where's the USAID money going? USAID money going, perhaps, maybe to funding insurgency in Africa, and we've been tracing that. We have Nigerian journalist David Hundeyin, who also did his own mathematics or investigation, and it seems like there might be some truth there. And I hope that we get to the bottom of this. I hope that we actually do find someone, put a name to it. It will really help the situation. But right now, we can only hope.
Yeah.
What can I say?
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. We would like to see, this congressman who made this statement and said that they found that, it was funding Boko Haram. We would like to see how much of it, who was it sent to,
I
we want to see a paper trail,
Yeah, I hope it's
just to substantiate these allegations. That's what I would like to see. And if Trump is really pulling I don't think this is necessarily USAID in particular. I think it's necessarily the Western country. I said this yesterday, I'll say it again. The Western world have over the years built their large economy and they are structured and thriving, prosperous economy off the backs of black and brown countries like ours. And so if these allegations are true, I want to see all of the details. I want to see everything declassified to the public knowledge. Let's all see it and let's know who brought that money.
Yeah.
Because saying Boko Haram is very, it's a group.
Yeah.
Who did you give it to?
Yeah. Well, they might also be having they might also be hoodwinks themselves. Maybe they're giving the money to the Nigerian government, but someone in there is diverting it. So that's why I need names. But how do you feel about Trump now? Is he as villainous as you thought?
Oh, he's still a villainous.
He's still a villain, but a villain. He's an anti-villain at this point.
No, it's not. It's a villain.
Trump,
to me,
everybody's working
to me,
now. Everybody's working now because Trump is back there.
Is everybody really working?
We are in Nigeria. We're asking questions as well. Where's the money going exactly? Listen, Judith, sorry for not. Don't let us fight.
No, is everybody working?
Let's not fight.
Right, we're not fighting. It's debate. I mean,
let's not debate.
It's not fighting.
Let's move on to our next strip. We have limited time. Our next strip this morning. Yes. Last week, everybody was like, come on, CBN. What's your problem? Another one. We're still dealing with with tariff hikes for telco. Thank goodness the next letter didn't come out. And then you want to do this. But I argue, as you can see here, nicely depicted by the artist from, what's the paper? The Guardian. The Guardian. Look at the ATM there. Nobody goes to it. Nobody uses it. And look, Madam POS sitting on stacks of cash.
I was reading a thread on social media. I can't remember who was writing it, and it was saying that when they brought the bright idea of the POS operators, it was basically for the unbanked. It was trying to, solve the issue of inclusivity. And then something happened along the way, and it ballooned, and it went out of their own control. And every single time, this picture, this nicely depicted animation just really, really goes to show how it says it's not just solving the problem, but it's also now made the other mode. What's the term? Sorry, I haven't slept well.
I wish I could help you.
I'm running on 4 hours of sleep, so bear with me.
It's okay.
The other mode of transaction inapt already. It's now useless. And I don't know who to blame here. I don't know if it's the CBN who didn't do their job in calling those banks until they had to go and find them. I don't know if it was the banks themselves. I don't know if it was jackpot that happened and a lot of people exited and they didn't have enough hands.
It's simple.
I don't know what happened.
I know what happened.
What happened?
When the first person who made pure water, what happened? Everybody
Capitalism.
made pure water. When the first person to get a POS machine got a POS machine, what happened? Everybody. It's the economy.
Yeah,
hungry. Any way to make money, I will. If I have to get a POS machine, stand under an umbrella, make relationships with the banks, allegedly, get money from them and give to people at a cost, selling the naira, and nobody's going to bat an eyelid, I'll do it.
But I must say that the operators, how do they even move around with the cash that they carry?
Hey, don't go there. Don't give anybody ideas.
You know, it's my head. Forgive me. I'm sorry. My brain does that thing. I zip my mouth. I was
Don't carry cash.
I'm sorry.
Don't have any bad element out there. They don't carry cash. Let's move on now to our next, and perhaps maybe it might be our final strip. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, we've been here. USAID. I keep adding the S. USAID. USAID. USAID.
USAID.
USAID. Yes, let's sever the aid off of the U.S. We're separate. No more funding. We're not going to do that. No more. Thank you very much. No more aid to Africa. I hope I got this. We're done. We're done with that. Nothing to see here. We're done. Africa, you guys can just go to... Yeah. 31 states were proposed last week. They say they need more allocation to be able to serve the people who live in these very remote areas. So what do we do? At 31 to 36, we have 37 states. Sorry, 60. My math is horrible. 67 states in Nigeria. But then again, hey, 31 states for Garys. They're like, oh God, no problem. After all, we're still enjoying the one that you recently created. State of hunger. Do I need to say any more?
Oh no!
Congratulations, The Guardian, once again. Always very apt with their bubbles.
That was bars. 10 over 10.
Bars, yeah. We're in
the
state of hunger. We're okay here. No problem.
That's good. That was good. No bars. No notes.
I think if you ask me, every single strip we had today was 10 over 10.
Yeah, 10 over 10.
Guardian to Business Day to Alamu on Daily Trust.
10 over 10.
I love it.
No bars.
Yeah.
No notes. They all killed it.
If you have a strip out there that you think we should see as the week progresses next week, how about you bring it to our attention? Perhaps maybe we'll have it on the show next week. Thank you very much. That will be it for the strips. Let's have a very interesting discussion on the culture of reading in Nigeria. It's gone. We'll be back.
So in a world of increasingly dominated by digital distractions, the art of reading for pleasure seems to be fading. However, individuals like Ezioma Kalu are reigniting this passion. A prolific Nigerian writer and book blogger, Ezioma has read an impressive 150 books in 2004 and 122 books in 2023. She shares her literary journey and insights on her book blog, Bookish Pixie, and her Instagram handle, Bookish Ezioma, which is bookish_Ezioma. Today, she joins us to talk about her efforts in reviving Nigeria's reading culture and to share her personal experiences. Ezioma, you have the floor.
My name is Ezioma Kalu, popularly known as Bookish Ezioma. In 2021, I read 40 books. In 2022, I read 100 books. In 2023, I read 122 books. And then in 2024, I read 150 books. Now the question on everyone's lips is, how did you do that? Today, I am going to be answering the how and why questions and also teach you practical ways to reading as much books as you would like to. First, why reading? Neuroscientists at every university in Atlanta have determined that just reading a gripping novel makes changes in the way the brain connects with different circuits. And most importantly, those changes last for at least 5 days. They may not be permanent, but at least that suggests that the rewards from reading last longer than the act itself. Reading has so many importance, and I'm going to be speaking on some of them today. 1, reading teaches you empathy. There are so many evils in this world, but then there are so many goodness too, and reading exposes you to both. It is very easy for you to sit at your privileged space and judge a situation you have never experienced because you do not understand it. However, reading teaches you to sympathize with people. You might still not understand their experiences and feelings, but at least you would sympathize with them, knowing that the world is not purely black and white. there are many gray particles, and these shades of gray come with different actions, reactions, and consequences. The characters of a book are usually multifaceted and complex, and they have different experiences and different reactions to these experiences. You might read a book where a character makes a poor decision and then go ahead to criticize that character. But human beings are not perfect. And because literature mirrors the real world, you learn empathy through reading books. When faced with a similar challenge as a character of a book in real life, you might make better decisions and not the poor ones the character makes. 2, reading improves your critical thinking skills and makes you emotionally intelligent. It is sad that in our world today, critical thinking skill is an art that is dwindling. Many people no longer think. If you engage in a conversation with them, you find out that their thinking is shallow. They don't even think deeply. But then, you can't give what you don't have. So many people have relinquished their thinking abilities to social media and given strangers the power to think for them. Some do not even have a mind of their own. However, reading solves this problem without you even knowing it. Have you ever read a good book and then you sit down to think about many different ways the ending could have been, or to think about the dominant theme, or even research about it? Reading exposes you to different worlds and themes and topics. I remember reading Tell Me Your Dreams by Sidney Sheldon. It's a book about dissociative personality disorder. It was so gripping and fascinating, and had never read a book like that before. And so I started researching on that topic and widening my horizon on the knowledge of that subject matter. Now, if someone behaves in a similar way like the character in the book, my first thought wouldn't be that it is a spiritual problem, like we have been taught all our lives. No. My first thought would veer towards a mental issue, and I would suggest they visit a psychiatrist. Then, I wouldn't judge the person because I have already read about a similar case, and while I don't fully understand what a mental illness can do to you, I empathize. At least, I understand that what that person is going through is a medical issue that requires urgent medical attention. Reading makes you emotionally intelligent. You learn when to speak, when not to speak, how to speak, and how not to speak through reading books. If more people read more books, then people would be kinder. They wouldn't slander a stranger on social media with impunity. If more people read books, then people would be more empathetic. Majority of the conversations that go on social media lacks empathy and kindness. People are always quick to carry their hammers and nails to crucify strangers on the internet because of the poor decisions they have made. But when you read books, you understand that it could happen to you too, and that humans are just flawed people who are sent into this world without a manual. And because this is our first life, we struggle to navigate this vehicle called life professionally. Everyone is fighting a hidden battle. Please be kinder. Reading allows you to live many lives and travel to many worlds. How do you say you exist without having stories? And how can you say you have lived without knowing the stories of other people that lived with you? And how can you know the stories of other people if you do not read about them? This is a food for thought. I have not left Nigeria, but through reading, I have lived the life of Kirabo in Uganda, from The First Woman by Jennifer Bakumbi. I have lived the life of Youngju in South Korea, from Welcome to Hunamdong Bookshop by Wang Boryum. I have also lived the life of Vimba in Zimbabwe, from The Hairdresser of Harare by Tendai Huchu. And flawed as she is, I see myself in Ifemelo, the protagonist of Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Through reading, I have learned about the different cultures and traditions of many people across the world. And I have come to realize that even though we are vast as a universe, we are also similar in so many ways. I read about the comfort women during the Second World War, how Japanese troops forced hundreds of thousands of women from Australia, Burma, China, the Netherlands, Japan, New Guinea, Korea, and other countries into sexual enslavement for Japanese soldiers. And then I read Women of Owu by Femi Osofison and see it happening all over again. Reading lowers the risk of some mental illnesses like the Alzheimer's disease. A major component of the brain that is correlated with both learning and Alzheimer's disease is cognitive reserve, which refers to the mind's resistance to damage and the storage of information. Having a strong cognitive reserve allows your brain to function and cope with changes. Reading books and engaging in mentally stimulating activities can help to improve your memory and thinking skills. But above all, reading is fun and entertaining. The major reason why I read books is that they are so fun and entertaining, and I take my entertainment seriously. You don't have to read books for all the serious reasons. You can also use books as a form of entertainment. And if music, movies, and sports are all forms of premium entertainment, then why not books? Reading is the new cool, so pick up a book today. Now I have answered all the why questions. Let's move into the how. How do you develop a reading habit? First and foremost, reading is not a chore. It's not something you do to prove a point. If that is the reason why you want to develop a healthy reading habit in 2025, then I have news for you. If you really want to cultivate a healthy reading habit, then you must demystify reading as a chore or a boring task. Reading is fun. It's as fun as listening to your favorite songs or watching your favorite shows on TV. When you see reading as a fun activity that makes you happy and helps you relieve stress, then you're consciously or unconsciously veering towards reading. You are excited when you get a new book. You can't wait to dive in. Secondly, read at your own pace. You do not have to read 150 books to be qualified as a reader. The first thing I tell anyone who asks me how I was able to read 150 books is to read at their own pace. The most important thing is that you're reading. If it's a chapter a day you can do, please, by all means, do so. Just read consistently. And if it's possible, please, read every day. Make a conscious effort to add reading into your daily schedule, no matter how tight it is. Devote a little bit of your time to reading books. Even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes, please do a proper time allocation to books. If you are a fast reader, then you might be able to cover so much at a little time. But if you are not, please do not bother yourself at all. Still read, but then at your own pace. Furthermore, please read what you love. You do not have to read a particular genre because you think it is cool or because the society thinks that is what you should read. Please, do not be boxed into reading a genre that doesn't appeal to you. No, don't do that. And also, it is not a crime to DNF a book. DNF means did not finish. If a book starts off excitedly and along the way you're losing the excitement and is boring you, you do not need to go all the way. Please drop it and pick a better one for you. It does not speak poorly on the author's effort, no. It's just a matter of preference, and it's totally fine if you are not the target audience. You could also develop a healthy reading habit by cutting down on your screen time. So many people spend a lot of time surfing the internet or scrolling from one social media platform to the other. You could cut down your screen time and include books into your schedule. By so doing, you'll be able to read as much books as you would love to. Please, bear in mind that people make out time for the things that they love. So please, if you love reading books or you want to cultivate a good reading habit, please, make out time for it. You can join reading communities on social media. They're called Bookstagram on Instagram, BookTalk on TikTok, and BookTweet on X. These are communities of book lovers who share their love for books and post pictures of books. You could find the next book to put on your TBR pile, to be read pile, from these communities. It has been a pleasure to be a part of these wonderful communities who have shown me that reading is cool. And while speaking of reading communities, shout out to Amin, the crazy book lady. You walked so I could run. Shout out to Uchenna for those beautiful book pictures and videos. Shout out to Nasiva, my bookish sister. And shout out to all the book lovers all over the world. Yes, you guys are the real MVPs. Finally, what's the best time to start your reading journey if not now? Get a book today and travel to the world of endless possibilities. Cheers to your reading journey. I will be rooting for you from this side. I still remain Eziama Kalu, the one and only bookish Eziama. Bye for now.
No. That is fantastic, Eziama. No, you can't go. No, bye for now, Eziama. We have to talk with you because we also have our own book literati person in the house here.
Okay.
Judith, I mean,
do not point at me.
Go.
Well, congratulations again.
Thank you.
Eziama. It's and again, we always would champion for people to read and everything else, and just really pick up a book and read. And as rightfully put, critical thinking is an issue here, and we continually, preach that and want people to read. But the books are now expensive, and so because of how expensive it is, a lot of people will tell you, well, I don't have money to buy books. What kind of advice would you then give them?
Okay, the advice I would give them is that there are other ways you could read books. There are some apps that you can subscribe monthly or yearly or whatever plan that you want to read books and also listen to audiobooks on a cheaper rate. Like, they are cheaper. And also, one thing that Nigerians always complain about, things are expensive, books are expensive. But then, one thing I always tell people is that you save money to buy what you want. People spend money on alcohol. People spend money on expensive things. But then when it comes to books, they're always complaining. You can save up money. Even if you don't buy all the books in the bookstores, just save up money. You can get a cheaper one. You can save up money to buy whatever you want to buy. So that's the advice that I have to give them.
I've got a question for you regarding books. Yeah, you said cut down your screen time. Now you're asking us to get apps. It's okay, no problem. But then again, do you think that books actually, if you ask anybody, read a book, they'll tell you, what does it do for me? Does it make me money? Does it make me money? Do you think that your ability to read books and read so many books opens up your world of possibility, maybe to employments, for instance?
Oh, yes, sure.
How does it do that exactly?
I always tell people that complain about, what does books do for you? I think it reeks of ignorance. Because how can you say you're a business person but you don't read business books? How do you expect to progress in a place, in a world that is competitive? So I think that when you read books, your mind opens and you learn so many things. You might even learn how to go to an interview. Like this book, Americana, that I've read, it's opened my mind to so many things. And I believe that I can do this because the character in this book, she goes through a lot and she goes through all these hurdles and she succeeds. Then I too can go through similar hurdles and I can succeed. The thing is that you do not even know the good thing that reading does for you till when it's time to practicalize. Maybe when you're faced with a situation where you have to act immediately on the spot. So all I have to say is that no knowledge is a waste. And as you're gaining knowledge through reading books, you do not know when you need to apply them. So I'll always advise, read books. You do not know when you will need to apply those knowledge that you garnered from books. Business books, fiction, all kinds of books are good. Yes, they are helpful.
A lot of people will be watching and be thinking that 150 books, 122 books, every single time, I don't ever post how many books I've read on social media just because I don't have time to start arguing with people about the number of books I have read and try to, defend the amount of books I've read but that happens on social media. And so as much as, you're doing this for your own personal growth, there's a group of people that are against that personal growth. So how do you, be able to navigate that, to feed into that skepticism, but also that criticism about your own personal growth?
Okay, so the first time that I went viral for reading books was in 2022. People were arguing, people were dragging me. It got to me that time because I wasn't really familiar with the way social media works, that you might just be on your own doing your thing, and then another person is angry because of what you're doing. But then I've gone viral for like 3 years, and in the course of these 3 years, I've learned to not allow those things get to me. And one thing I tell myself is that, you're really doing a great thing, because for people to be aggravated like this, just because you're reading book and posting on your own personal pages, they are dragging you. And trust me, I get dragged every single time. People ask me, who reading Ebb? Is your name on the Forbes list? What will he do for you? How will you find husband? There are so many degrading things that I receive every day. So many backlashes. But then I tell myself, you're doing a great thing, because they say if nobody talks about you, then you're nobody. And that's the only motivation I need. So keep reading and keep posting, and I will not stop.
All right. I mean, I must say again, well done, Isioma, and just well done to continue to read and continue to champion this cause of, you know, getting more people onto the good side. That's how I like to think of it, the good side. Again, congratulations, and thank you for coming onto the show.
We want you back, always. Thank you, Isioma.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to take a break now, and then perhaps maybe bring you the news and more discussion. We've got 2 hours to go inside of Breakfast Extra here on News Central. Welcome again, top of the hour. My name is Mazima Peel, and I'm bringing you the breakfast headlines. We begin in West Africa, on the continent where Nigeria's Electoral Commission is calling for stricter laws to prevent vote buying and other malpractices. The Independent National Electoral Commission wants individuals to be prohibited from carrying large sums of money within polling areas. INEC's Director of Litigation and Prosecution, Taminu Mohammed, suggested a cash limit of 50,000 naira within polling areas. This move aims to curb vote buying, which has become a major threat in Nigeria's democratic process. And still on politics matters, a chieftain of Iowa Consultative Forum and former secretary of the defunct Action Congress, Usman Bugaje, has called for collegiate systems of leadership in the country to end the North-South presidential rotation debate. Bugaje said he would prefer the country to get the best hands wherever they might be found to run the country, then narrowing the presidential choice to a region of the country. He called for inclusion and inclusive governance based on competence and denounced the perennial regional divisions and corrupt leadership in Nigeria. The crisis rocking the People's Democratic Party seems to be, not have abated despite the interventions of the governor under the platform of the party, throwing their weight behind Sunday Ude Okoye as the authentic national secretary of the party. A faction of the party loyal to the embattled National Secretary Samuel Anyanwu has rejected the decision of the PDP Governors Forum, saying it runs contrary to the party's constitution and does not recognize a valid court ruling on the matter, which earlier called for a stay of execution.
It's high time we say we don't want to remain silent any longer, to allow people that claim to love PDP, that parade themselves as lovers of PDP, to go ahead carrying narrative, deceiving party faithfuls in Nigerians and abroad and Nigerians. We only have PDP, and that's why we said today we are going to expose those weeds in PDP. We are calling on the Taraba State Governor specifically to speak out regarding this section. He was the state chairman of PDP, contested, won the primary, contested the governorship, won the election. He still remained the chairman, functioning as the state chairman. We insist that Senator Samuel Enemeka Anyanwu remains the authentic PDP National Secretary in line with the party constitution and other existing laws of the land.
Away from that now, the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress in the 2023 elections, Omoyele Sowore, was reportedly attacked by suspected thugs at the Lagos City Marathon on Saturday morning. Sowore and members of his media crew were assaulted while participating in the event. The attackers also targeted journalists covering the marathon, injuring several and destroying cameras and other equipment. Access roads leading to the ports in Nigeria play a pivotal role in the efficiency of the ports. The Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Adegboyega Oyetola, had in 2023 listed 15 roads connecting Nigeria's seaports that requires urgent and comprehensive rehabilitation, and sought collaboration with the Ministry of Works. It's been over a year since both ministries agreed on the way to fix these roads, with the Works Minister, Dave Umahi, promising to take action without delay. Our News Central's maritime correspondent, Neoma Obi-Oswalu, assesses the state of the roads to find out what has changed.
A visit here shows the poor state of the road. This is increasing transport costs, discouraging foreign investment and hindering trade efficiency. Our ports cannot be competitive with this kind of roads. We call on the federal government to give urgent attention to this route. Nigeria's port access routes, particularly those leading to Apapa ports in Lagos, are generally in poor condition. They are riddled with potholes, uneven surfaces, and inadequate drainage systems, further worsening the traffic situation on the roads, leading to significant congestion, delays in cargo movement, and substantial economic losses as a result of inability to easily access the ports. This situation, which is primarily attributed to inadequate infrastructure, poor maintenance, heavy truck traffic, and a lack of effective management strategies, has hindered port efficiency and competitiveness. Importers and exporters experience high transportation costs, prolonged transit time, and heightened risk of accidents leading to loss of lives. The poor state of the roads brings severe congestion, resulting in long queues of trucks waiting to access the port, causing major gridlock and delays in cargo delivery. Some of the truckers affected by the state of the port access routes speak on the impact of the bad roads and life on the streets while they wait for their turn into the port.
Yeah, we have been on the road for 3 days, and we can stay at times. We can stay 1 week on the road before going inside the port to load out, and it's really affecting us because before we could even hit, it's very, very hard to hit, and for us to even come down and say we want to bet is very, very too risky for us. So the government should they should do something about it. The bad road is affecting us because when the road is bad, it's affecting us in the way that before we could move from one place to the other place, we are going to wait for other vehicles to move from that place because we cannot all rush at once because of the bad road. So it's affecting us as well. They should do something about it. The hoodlums, they are really affecting us as well because many trucks you see on road now, some of them they have back rear lights and they even have side lights that are working for other trucks to know this is a truck going. But those hoodlums, when they see you sleeping a bit at night, they will just go under your truck, then cut those wires, and they will even draw your gas. And sometimes when they draw your gas and you don't know, as you want to start your truck, it will cut. So the last man, they will tow your truck and they will not know maybe it is the hoodlums that are doing all those stuff. And they are even cutting our containers, taking goods that doesn't belong to them and affecting us in the way that they will say, okay, the driver will be the one to pay for the goods.
It takes 2 to 3 weeks on the line from Lily Pond to port, but we thank God. Our boss, Alhaji Shitu Shagalo, has been very efficient since he came. He stays at Area B and parks the trucks himself and won't allow trucks drivers use the other lane. He goes to Eleganza and makes sure the line goes smoothly. Now we've been on the line facing this for 3 days. We left our wives and children at home. I personally have left home for 14 days now. My wife has been fighting me over this, but I keep telling her it works and is very tasking. This is one of the reasons why some of our drivers smoke weed when they have slept outside for too long and mosquitoes have bitten them for too long. It happened this midnight. When we were coming, the driver was asleep and they hurriedly woke him up. He started the truck and he hit a truck in front of him. We are not sure how that happened. He wanted to relax and sleep a bit, and that happened. Once we all saw that, we went to check and we saw that sleep was still in his eyes. Some people will refuse to sleep because of these things like these lure drivers into this street habit. A lot of drivers have embraced these societal ills as a result of being on the street for too long. From Lily Pond to Apapa shouldn't take us more than 5 minutes, but it now takes us 3 to 4 days. Some drivers are now in prison because there is no security. We are begging Governor Sanwo-Olu to give us tight security from Apapa to Onipano. Many thieves cutting our containers, sending drivers to prison. When you go to prison now, so many truck drivers are there. We are thankful to Governor Sanwo-Olu because he has repaired some bad roads, but there are still many more that needs to be fixed. What bad road does is that it makes our trucks fall. If we are coming, we see bend roads, but there is no alternative route. We'll have to follow the roads. The front of the truck might have successfully gone through. The remaining back might fall the truck, and we can't run on these roads. You will now see thieves robbing us there. I've seen the driver come down to have a face-off with those thieves, and they use machetes on the driver's head. And all this is because of bad roads. We beg Governor Sanwo-Olu. He's really trying in Lagos State, but he should please do more, especially for Ijora to Alaka. It's very bad. We beg Governor Sanwo-Olu. He's working, but he should do more.
In Lagos, for News Central, Norma Obiaswalo.
And that's all the headlines we have for you this hour. Do stay tuned because we have more discussions inside of Breakfast Extra.
And you're welcome back. In a startling revelation, U.S. Congressman Scott Perry has alleged that the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, has been inadvertently funding terrorist organizations including Boko Haram, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda. During a recent subcommittee hearing, Perry claimed that approximately $697 million annually intended for developmental aid has been misappropriated to support these groups. He highlighted instances where funds earmarked for constructing schools in Pakistan showed zero evidence of completion, raising serious concerns about oversight and accountability within USAID. And now to join us to discuss this further, we're joined by investigative journalist David Hundeyin, who has delved deeper into these allegations, uncovering a complex web of financial mismanagement and corruption. His research suggests that significant sums reportedly allocated for educational and humanitarian projects have been siphoned off, potentially fueling instability and violence in regions like Nigeria. Today's findings have ignited debates about the role of international aid agencies and the unintended consequences of their operations in conflict zones.
Justice Judith says joining us to discuss these pressing issues, David Hundeyin, the investigative journalist who brought these allegations to light, and Awal Rafsanjani, executive director of the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center. Welcome to the program, guys. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good. And Rafsanjani is with us as well, I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Grand, okay. Now, David, let's start with you. Could you first provide an overview of your investigation into USAID's alleged funding misappropriations and how you uncovered all of this?
So I wouldn't go as far as to call it an investigation. It's just sort of some basic fact-checking that I did shortly after the initial set of allegations were made by the U.S. Department of Government Efficiency about financial malfeasance at USAID. I went to the U.S. government platform where you can actually verify what payments are going in and coming out. It's a U.S. Treasury platform. And I paid a special focus to USAID Nigeria, because obviously Nigeria is where my key focus is on. And what I noticed, so there were two major things that I noticed. I noticed, first of all, in the lead up to Donald Trump's inauguration, obviously Donald Trump had made it very clear prior to becoming president that one of his priorities would be to slash the foreign aid budget. In the lead up to Donald Trump's inauguration, there were several of these like unexplained, significantly large payments that were made to this sort of very nondescript organizations. And then after, I believe it was on January 28th, Donald Trump made he issued the executive order freezing all payments from USAID. And what I noticed with USAID Nigeria is that on January 29 and on January 30, which is the day after and 2 days after the direct instruction from the US president was made, a total of about $466,000 were sent out to recipients by USAID Nigeria. And even worse, the recipients were marked as miscellaneous and undisclosed. So we have close to $500,000. So $466,000 for reference, that's something in the region of 700 million naira, or just under 700 million naira, basically disappearing into a black hole after the US president gave the direct instruction that there had to be no further payments to anybody. 700 million naira is a lot of money in Nigeria. That's a lot of money to just disappear into nothingness. So where is that money going? And this has been a key recurring theme, that a lot of these sort of humanitarian or this sort of nondescript foreign missions that purport to do something in Nigeria and other parts of Africa, it has long been an accusation leveled at them that these people are, in fact, one of the key reasons why there's a lot of instability. There's terrorism and there's the rebel groups and whatnot across Africa. Because if you think about it, where on earth are these groups getting their support from? The context here is that Africa is in terms of economic output, is the world's poorest continent. It has the world's leanest economies. It has the world's poorest people. There is very little to fight over in terms of the actual size of the economy that exists in Africa. And yet, every 10 minutes, there's a new armed group rising out of the dust, out of the woodwork, for no reason in particular. So in the last 6 months alone, even just in Nigeria, we've seen a new one to add to the plethora of the ones that we have Boko Haram, we have AQIM, we have ISWAP, we have a new one, Lakurawas. It's the same story across the Sahel. It's the same story in East Africa. There's always some M23. There's always a new group coming out of the woodwork to fight over the nothing that we have. And these new groups are always very suspiciously well-armed, well-funded. They have incredible logistical support networks. If you recall, there was a time when Boko Haram was actually physically holding territory, and the Nigerian military could not enter. Something similar happened in Mali, where there was a period where fully half, or more than half of Mali's territory was being held by these, Islamists in the Sahel. So where on earth does it happen that these sort of, flip-flop wearing semi-literate people suddenly get such logistical capacity and such training to be able to go toe-to-toe with, with battle-hardened national militaries? For all of the Nigerian military's failings, the Nigerian military is actually one of the most engaged militaries in Africa. They're quite battle-hardened. So how is it possible that these groups come up out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they can go toe-to-toe? They have equipment that the Nigerian military doesn't have. More recently, we've seen reports that they have drones. They have military drones. For reference, even the type of connection you need to run a military drone, it's not a mobile internet connection you used to do it. It's not Airtel or MTN that you used to use. You need a satellite connection for that. So how are separatist groups in Sahel having access to satellite connections? Where is this? This is a very expensive endeavor. So where exactly is that money coming from? And I think we're starting to see the answer now. That it's no longer just an accusation. It's no longer just circumstantial. That a U.S. congressman has basically come out and said it, and he's fighting documents
It's given more credit to the entire situation, hasn't it?
Yes, indeed. I mean, let's come to you a while. I mean, from a civil society perspective, what are the implications of these allegations for Nigeria's security as well as trust in international aid?
Mr. Rafsanjani?
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Rafsanjani, that was directed to you.
Okay. Yeah, well, for us, we are not surprised. This is something that has been going on over, decades. Some countries that they regard themselves as powerful and that they must control the economic and political space in Africa. They have deployed strategy this time around not to do direct colonialism, but to do it indirectly by sponsoring this kind of not only faceless but even very faceless groups to sustain their control and their influence, while the citizens suffer from the violence attack from these terror groups, which they actually formed and sponsored. At the same time, they will be siphoning the resources of these countries. And that's exactly what we have been witnessing over the years in many of the African countries where you have incidents of terror groups. There's a history behind this sponsorship or this exposure that the congressman in America had made. As a matter of fact, it's not a hidden secret that the State Department actually is, responsible for many of these groups that emerge. For example, if you look at the terror groups in the Al-Qaeda, for example, Al-Qaeda was funded and formed by the allegedly by the State Department. You remember Osama bin Laden was actually trained and sponsored by the State Department. It was only when they began to disagree that they now call them terrorists or they now call them terror. So I think if you look at various groups that the West support to carry out arms, they are actually highly funded by these Western countries simply because they want to have control of their economy. They want to make sure that they continue to extend their colonialism, through the use of terror groups. So we are not surprised as civil society that this, exposure, was confirmed by a congressman in America. But what actually surprised us was the fact that the Nigerian military or the Nigerian authority, despite the intelligence that they have, they could not be able to know this and then be able to even rise up and demand for the continuation of this sponsorship of terror group. So apparently, the Nigerian military, they were just enjoying spending, trillions of naira in the names of buying arms and ammunition, what we did not even see it, in terms of safety and protection of the citizens.
Okay, then, Mr. Rafsanjani.
For me, I'm not really surprised as a civil society. I'm not surprised. It is something that we know has been going on. Only that our own government have not been proactive to ensure that they raise the necessary concern over it.
Well, Mr. Rafsanjani, the next question is how pervasive is this corruption and what direction is it coming from? Are we saying that, organizations like USAID are the corrupt ones, or does it become corrupt after they've handed it over to authorities here in Nigeria? Where does the corruption start? Are they aware that they are funding insurgency, or is it taken over from the Nigerian side once these funds are made available to the agencies here in Nigeria?
So I'm not sure if it is the USAID funding, but rather the State Department, because the USAID, most of its funding, you could see that it is more of like a development project. Not really, working directly, between government to government. It is very important to note that this kind of funding, is directly from the State Department, not from necessarily USAID. USAID focuses more on issues around health, around education, around maybe other issues that has to do with the community support. But a major project like sponsoring terror groups, I think it doesn't come from the USAID funding, but rather from the State Department, or from any relevant American institutions that they do that. And for me, the congressman is making this statement maybe because they really needed to justify why USAID has to be scrapped. Otherwise, for the past 10 years, he has been in the U.S. Congress, and he hasn't raised this. So for me, actually, is even though he has actually said the truth that they are the one sponsoring terror group, but he could have made this in, when 10 years back when he has been in the Congress. So he has not made that, this linking it to USAID. For me, I do not think that it is funded with the facts and evidence, but rather maybe funding from the State Department or from directly other US, related funding. Nigeria and the United States of America have what they call bilateral. So there's bilateral relation that supports Nigeria with, either weapons or training or intelligence. So I think invariably, I believe that it is because the Nigeria is also sleeping. That is why we have experienced this kind of thing without being noted or without being, action being taken. I think, it is a clerical call for the Nigerian government to be more serious about, how they engage with the multinational, cooperation or diplomatic relation that they have.
All right.
We have submitted ourselves to like a second-hand citizens.
All right. Well, Mr. Olatunde-Lamidi, we are aware that you're in transit, so we'll let you go now, but thank you very much for your contribution here this morning. We'll continue with David Hundeyin.
Yes, David. You just listened to Mr. Wow's submission there regarding mechanisms and just basically how whether or not, whether the funds are being misappropriated or diverted. One thing is certain, we also bear the brunt of the blame when it comes to their meddling with our affairs. Do you agree with Mr. Olatunde-Lamidi?
I agree with him partially. I agree with him in the sense that the State Department obviously plays a big role in directing and coordinating the sort of strategic stabilization of African countries, including Nigeria. Where I absolutely and totally disagree with him is the idea that USAID is somehow innocent in all of this. Obviously, he comes from the civil society space in Nigeria, which is largely funded by USAID and its affiliates. So I can understand why, maybe out of some sense of solidarity, he doesn't want to sort of throw his colleagues under the bus. However, if you've been following the story and if you've been following the characters involved in the story, it's very clear that USAID has at least as much involvement as the State Department does. Because how this works is that unlike the State Department, which is obviously subject to Congress, or the CIA, which is subject to the President, CIA needs approval from the President to carry out any operation. USAID was not established by an act of Congress and doesn't need permission from the President. So it's basically a law unto itself. And the budget for USAID is more than that of the CIA and the State Department put together. It's between $40 and $50 billion annually. So essentially, the USAID functions as the sort of slush fund of the U.S. intelligence community. This has been very well established if you've been following figures like Mike Pence, who has been doing a lot of great expository work about this. He used to work at the State Department. So basically, the USAID is the big slush fund. And how money is moved to terrorists or separatists or whatever is that it's done in plain sight, right? Unlike maybe the CIA or the State Department who do covert things, but they do it directly. What USAID will do is that they will say that they're funding some organization that I don't know, feeds hungry children somewhere in northern Nigeria, and they'll fund it with $10 million. And when you go onto the ground, you realize that it's not even a fraction of that money made it there, right? But where that money actually made it to was the bad actors in question. That is how That is the true extent of USAID involvement in this story. And that's not my opinion. That's what the Americans themselves are revealing. Obviously, this is happening because of a political dispute in Washington, D.C. The current occupants are trying to purge the influence of the previous occupants, which is why everybody's bringing out everybody's secrets now. It's not as if they didn't know this before. So obviously we know that they're not doing this out of the sincerity of their hearts or because anybody has any interest in fighting terrorism or whatnot. We know they're doing it just to discredit the Democrats. But at the end of the day, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? If something which, I mean, as at 2009, we were not visually familiar with the concept of terror as a Nigerian thing. Terrorism didn't exist in 2009. And just 4 years later, by 2013, terrorism was an everyday headline in Nigeria. We've been very harshly, very rudely, and very violently brought into this world that we're not familiar with. And that has happened through the actions of American administrations, primarily Democrats. So if it happens that you then have this sort of wrecking ball sort of administration in power now that is not even Republican in the conventional sense, basically just want to burn everything down, out of some sense of vengeance or whatever, you should take it because that's in our favor, right? If our problem or one of our biggest problems is that we have this huge 800-pound gorilla that is sponsoring instability in our region and making it impossible for us to grow, and now that gorilla is having internal issues and all these things are becoming exposed, that gives us a window of opportunity to do what needs to be done. So I completely disagree with Mr. Rafsanjani in his attempt to sort of extricate USAID from this issue because USAID is front and center.
David, isn't that kind of justified when you think about the jobs that is created? I mean, with its good comes its bad as well, but there's been some level of good to it, and those are people's jobs and livelihoods. There are CSOs who's benefited from USAIDs, there are people who have been employed under this scheme, and I mean, if he tries to extricate himself, doesn't he have a right to do that?
Well, if USAID is responsible for funding, for creating the instability in the first place, and then they are sort of treating the symptoms, or making some cursory pretense at treating the symptoms, but they are the ones who are behind it in the first place, then their presence is not helping. If I stick a needle into your neck and I'm siphoning off your blood, right, and you're slowly dying, and then at the same time I'm feeding you vitamins and nutrients and fruits so that you stay alive and you keep producing blood, right? I can claim that I'm the one keeping you alive because I'm feeding you, but I'm also the one killing you. So the solution is not for the status quo to remain. The solution is for me to take the needle out so that whether I'm feeding you or not makes no difference to you. That's what USAID needs to do in Nigeria. They need to leave us alone.
All right, now, David.
And we will sort out whatever issues that we have.
David, let's look at the why. In your submission, you used very interesting words that I found very interesting. By the way, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Totally describes the situation. However, you mentioned nondescript organizations here in Nigeria that have perhaps maybe received certain funds from these agencies outside of the country, in this case USAID. You spoke of $700 million, is it dollars or naira, that vanished into thin air? And I think the word you used was strategic destabilization. Why exactly would they want to destabilize the Nigerian economy? What are we giving back to them? What are they gaining from us being destabilized?
So again, you don't have to take my word for it because I realize that when I say these things, a lot of the time it sounds like these are my theories. So I think people need to, for example, read up on the so-called Kissinger report or the Kissinger doctrine, which is still available online. This was basically the background for American foreign policy for Africa, which was formulated sometime in the 1970s when Henry Kissinger was U.S. Secretary of State, and it still forms the basis for U.S. policy, for U.S. foreign policy on Africa. It has not changed since then. So you can read that document. You can also read up on I believe the fellow that I referenced earlier, Mike Benz, who used to work at the State Department. There's a good video series he's been putting out recently. One of those videos, he talked about a CIA training manual which came across, and he actually put up the manual. You can actually download it, where a fictional West African country called Nairobi, whose capital is called Ajuba, draw your conclusions from that. And it's basically a trading manual for how the CIA could hypothetically stage a crisis in that country for the sole purpose of disrupting the construction of Chinese infrastructure, because the idea is that continued construction of Chinese-funded infrastructure draws that big West African country into the economic and political ambit of China and reduces American influence in the region. It's very important for people to understand how the U.S. foreign policy establishment sees the world. It does not see the world as a place where human beings live, and this is where your children are living and dying. This is where your hopes and dreams exist. It sees the world primarily in terms of resource potential and in terms of who is friendly and who is hostile, who is useful and who is not. All right. So according to this Kissinger doctrine, it forms the basis for U.S. foreign policy on Africa. Africa has a very specific role in global economy and in geopolitics. The economic role is that it's to be the place where you get cheap industrial inputs. So that's cheap cash crops, cheap energy reserves like crude oil, uranium, whatnot, cheap solid minerals, and it's also to be a place where you get cheap human labor if it's needed.
So David.
So nowhere in that doctrine is there a space for an Africa which has a large population that uses its own resources, that has an industrial economy, and that exists at the same level as maybe North America, Europe, and Asia. There's no space for that in that U.S. foreign policy doctrine. So it therefore follows logically that if you are the foreign policy establishment in charge of executing that doctrine, your key focus will be to ensure that that part of the world that is meant to remain the place with hewers of wood and drawers of water cannot be stable. Those people cannot have 10 uninterrupted years of peace.
So who do we have to thank for this? I asked that first, then I'm going to apply this. In his first term, Donald J. Trump was seen as a tyrant, was seen as, he was seen as a villain by most of Africa. Now, if we have these events unfolding and we have us in Nigeria here looking for accountability, are we now changing his status from villain to hero? Does he mean well for Africa? Is that why he is cutting these agencies and cutting these fundings to help us, perhaps, do you think?
No, he absolutely does not mean well for Africa. But as I said, he has an agenda which happens to align with that of Africa. I don't think Donald Trump can place most African countries on the map. He probably thinks we're all about the resource monkeys on this continent, to be honest. However, it just so happens that as a result of the manner in which he was forced out of office last time, he believes the election was stolen from him, and also as a result of what was done to him during the 4 years where he was out of power. People often forget he was dragged through several court processes and legal processes. He had the police mug shot. Right. To the best of my knowledge, he is the first U.S. president in the modern era to have a police mug shot taken of him. Right. And then he also believes that they tried to kill him twice, which, I mean, you do have to say it is quite curious that someone that heavily guarded, some untrained kid somewhere was able to put a bullet within a few centimeters of his head. So he believes that this deep state, this secret state, right, which is the same as this foreign policy establishment in the U.S., he believes that they are his enemy. So which is why they have been his key focus. All of the key institutions in that deep state, he has gone after all of them. He's gone after the National Endowment for Democracy, NED, which is the main vehicle for foreign regime change operations. He's gone after USAID, which is basically the piggy bank for all these operations that happen, with or without presidential approval. He's gone after, there was this other major one he went after. He's put Marco Rubio in charge of the State Department, which is going to severely whittle the amount of influence that he has, and he's basically cut funding. The reason he's so specific about cutting funding is not really because he cares about efficiency and whatnot. To be honest, the foreign policy budget of the U.S. is 1% of the federal budget. It's not that much money in American terms. The reason he's going after it so specifically is that he's trying to defund the people he thinks are his enemies. And that just so happens to align spectacularly with what we need from U.S. foreign policy. So which is why I say we should see it as an opportunity and don't look a gift horse in the mouth. It doesn't mean Donald Trump is a good person. Doesn't mean he's a hero. Doesn't mean he likes Africa. He definitely doesn't. But we'll take it.
Right. David, I have to ask you, in all of this, there's one thing, there's an element that I think that we need to, try to focus on, and that's Nigeria and our lack of intelligence, or the presence of none, or if there is in any sense, because this has been going on since what, 2014 or thereabout, and the terrorism group have metamorphosed over the years to what we now see it as Rawa, right? And so it begs to ask the question how this funding have slipped under the radar, that from one administration to another and now the third have not been able to flag this, and our the head of defense, chief of defense staff, plus all the chief heads and the national security advisor have not been able to flag this, or the individuals who are in cahoots with USAID to have gotten to this point.
So I just want to correct the impression that the Nigerian intelligence infrastructure and the security establishment is not aware, or they've not been aware. They have been aware for at least 10 years. Money cannot come into Nigeria or flow within Nigeria, and they don't know. They do know. The problem is that the sheer quantum of money that is involved here makes it very easy in the Nigerian context for people to have their loyalties tested and for people to look the other way when they really shouldn't. That is the key problem. And I can say this authoritatively because based on my own interactions with people in that space, and also based on my interactions with people in the civil society space, I know for a fact that none of this is news to many actors in those spaces. They are very well aware of what is happening and the role that they are deliberately or inadvertently playing. But what you will hear from them is, at the end of the day, man must job. That's I think the tragedy of the Nigerian condition, where you know that something is being done to you and to your people, and you know that hundreds of thousands of people are dying as a result of this thing that is being done. But all you can see is what little localized benefits you are getting out of it. So because you get to drive a nice car, you get to live in a nice part of town in Abuja, you get to travel the world, and you get to have this little, petit bourgeoisie lifestyle, that is worth hundreds of thousands of people in the Northeast dying anonymously, just so that you can have this little pretense of comfort, while the country continues to implode around you, and while the inflation keeps inching and creeping closer to you, while you cover your eyes and pretend that it's not happening. That is the case with the CSO establishment, that's the case with the security establishment, that's especially the case with the intelligence establishment, which is, they know this in greater detail than any of us who is speaking here does. They do. They just can't, they just refuse to act on it because everybody has a vested interest here or there, and it's very unfortunate.
Right, very unfortunate indeed. And just finally, before I let you go, right, what particularly were like the red flags or patterns that sort of points to, that we have overlooked for too long? Some red flag or pattern that, in your course of just, looking at this and just seeing how this has played out and just being very invested in this situation, what were some patterns and red flags that even the ordinary Nigerian or even the media just didn't see?
So let me read out a portion from, this was part of a USAID budget, I believe, from 2023. And these are just some random line items, just to create some context. So $10 million for voluntary medical male circumcision in Mozambique. $9.7 million for University College Berkeley, California, to develop a cohort of Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills. $2.3 million for strengthening independent voices in Cambodia. $14 million for gender equality and women empowerment hub. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $486 million to the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strength. So these are all line items that mean absolutely nothing. These are extremely vague descriptions that do not give you any information about where this money is going, who it is going to, and what it is going to be used for. These are vague descriptions. So if you were a banker and you were seeing transfers in these sums, and these were the descriptions, as a compliance officer in a bank, you would not be doing your job if you didn't flag these, because these have all sorts of money laundering red flags, right? So if your job was to counter money laundering and terror financing, these are the things that you would look at. However, because it's coming from a U.S. government institution, you convince yourself that you have to look the other way, and obviously you may also have some vested interest. So I think that's what has been happening, because the red flags have been there in plain sight. This is money laundering on an epic scale, right? Because Nigeria is mentioned in that budget too, and you have hundreds of millions of dollars. In 2023, for example, supposedly USAID spent $823 million in Nigeria.
Hang on a second, David.
We actually don't know.
David, hang on a second. Where does the responsibility lie? Does it lie with USAID to actually check on where the monies are going, or the Nigerian authorities to see where they might be spent at? Where does it lie exactly? Who's to blame when it comes to these monies disappearing? Who didn't do their due diligence to follow the trail?
It's definitely the Nigerian government's responsibility, because again, it's not a case of USAID making a mistake or just money just innocently going missing. These are bad actors. These are things that are deliberately done intentionally to conceal bad faith actions. So it's the responsibility of the victim to ensure that they are not victimized. So it's the Nigerian government's responsibility to ensure that Nigerian lives and hopes and dreams are protected in a world where some people have written a foreign policy doctrine somewhere that Africans are supposed to be poor and miserable, and that we're not supposed to, our population is not supposed to thrive, right? It's the Nigerian government's responsibility as the government of the most populous African nation in existence to ensure that through its own enforcement and monitoring actions, it makes it impossible for anybody who has such views to actually actualize them on the ground. So ultimately, that's where the buck stops. The buck stops in Asurok.
Yeah, but David, aren't you said it's the responsibility of the victim to work towards not being victimized. Aren't you victim shaming and blaming? That's a rhetorical question. I was trying to make a joke. But you made mention of the line items and saying that they were quite vague, and whoever's doing this bulk transfers should have been able to flag them. And that takes me to the Financial Crimes Commission, not necessarily EFCC, but the unit that is for the bank. I think it's called the NFIU, which is the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, which is supposed to flag issues like this and raise it up to either the EFCC or the National Advisor, the National Security Advisor. It makes me wonder whether or not, these units are seeing them as flagging them, or if they just sweep it under the carpet or take it at face value. And so it takes me to also my other question of to identify who this money are being transferred to. I know USAID is the entirety of Africa, but specifically for Nigeria, with those line items and those transfers, those coming to Nigeria, were you able to identify who these organizations are, these individuals are, or CSOs?
As far as USAID goes, not really, because again, these are the best people in the world at hiding financial flows, at concealing the true destination of such things. However, what I will also mention with regard to the NFIU and the EFCC is that I've had interactions with them previously. So I remember in 2022, I was part of a team that we gained access to a database of payments from a Qatari charity that has been linked to terror financing around the world. It's called E-Charity, that's EID, E-Charity. And, I was contacted, so this group was based in Washington, so they contacted me because Nigeria was mentioned in the report. And I extracted the data for Nigeria, and I established that between, I believe it was 2007 to 2022, that nothing less than $12 million had been funneled from this terror-linked Qatari charity to this completely anonymous entity in Nigeria called Jiras Al-Qaeda Foundation. Right, completely anonymous entity, doesn't have CAC registration, doesn't appear to. The only proof that it exists is a signboard somewhere in Ibadan saying Jiras Al-Qaeda Foundation and this tiny little one-story house. So it's incredible that $12 million would have been funneled to a one-story house somewhere in Ibadan over the course of more than a decade, and nobody knew about it. And this thing doesn't even have CAC registration. So I reached out to the EFCC spokesperson, Dele Oyewale, and I also reached out to the NFIU before I published the story to get their comments that this is a very clear-cut case of terror finance, and this is a terror financing pipeline. You have payment details here, you have, this is cast iron information. What are you going to do about it? And I didn't even get a response to my emails, my WhatsApp messages. They just completely blanked me. So in EFCC's case, Dele Oyewale actually read my message, because I sent him a message on WhatsApp, I saw the double blue tick, so he read my message and he completely ignored me till today as we speak. So that gives you an idea of what our institutions think of as enforcement, really. I guess if it's not a politically sensitive issue, or maybe the president hasn't ordered them to do something, then they're just not going to do anything.
All right. Well, David, I want to say thank you very much for following the paper trail. Oh, by the way, is that a white wall behind you? Is it a wall, what we can see?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, it is.
Next time we come to you, please have a picture on it, okay? Just something to tell us a bit about
I'll try.
Oh my God.
Thank you very much, David. Always a pleasure having you on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, that's David Hundeyin there. He's an investigative journalist, and we also were joined by Awara Spanjani, who just gave us a bit of insight following the allegations by U.S. Congressman Scott Perry regarding the allegations of terrorism funding in Boko Haram and the greater part of Africa. Let's go on a short break. When we return, we're talking tourism. After the break, stay with us. And welcome back. As promised, it's time for us to talk tourism. Now, we know that tourism is more than just an industry. It's a lifeline for economies, cultures, and communities worldwide. However, in recent years, the sector has faced unprecedented disruptions from the COVID-19 pandemic and now to climate-related disasters. There's also geopolitical conflicts and economic downturns. Just recognizing the importance of strengthening the global travel industry, the United Nations declared February 17th as Global Tourism Resilience Day. It's a day dedicated to addressing the vulnerabilities in tourism and fostering long-term sustainability. The focus is on ensuring destinations can withstand and recover from shocks while continuing to provide economic opportunities and cultural exchange. And so for Nigeria, a nation that is rich in history, biodiversity, and cultural heritage, tourism remains an untapped gold mine. While destinations like Obudu Ranch or Obudu Mountain Resort to Yankari Game Reserve and the historic city of Badagry, it holds great potential. But the issue is infrastructure deficiencies and as well as security concerns and inadequate marketing continue to hinder the sector's growth. So on the flip side, other African and global destinations have developed resilient tourism models that Nigeria could learn from. And as we mark Global Tourism Resilience Day, we examine the current state of Nigerian tourism, its challenges, and the steps needed to make it a key economic driver. And so to do that, we're going to be joined on the conversation by two distinguished ladies. The first is Wonuola Olatunde-Lamidi. She's the co-founder of Diamonds and Pearls Travels. And we also have Bethia Idoko. She's the CEO of Travel with Bethia. These ladies are industry experts who will share their insight on how to build a sustainable tourism sector in Nigeria and beyond. So ladies, it's a pleasure to have you both join us on the show today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. But first, we need to go on a short break, so I need to have you guys just to be on standby just a little bit more because Mazino is about to bring us breakfast headlines. Stay here.
Breakfast headlines now. My name is Mazino Peel. We begin in West Africa, where Nigeria's Electoral Commission is calling for stricter laws to prevent vote buying and other malpractices. Now, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, wants individuals to be prohibited from carrying large sums of money within polling areas. INEC's Director of Litigation and Prosecution, Taminu Mohammed, suggested a cash limit of 50,000 naira within polling areas. This move aims to curb vote buying, which has become a major threat in Nigeria's democratic process. And still on political matters, a chieftain of Ira Consultative Forum and former secretary of the defunct Action Congress, Usman Bugaje, has called for collegiate systems of leadership in the country to end the North-South presidential rotation debate. Bugaje said he would prefer the country to get the best hands wherever they might come from and run the country than narrowing the presidential choice to a region of the country. He called for inclusive governance based on competence and denounced the perennial regional divisions and corrupt leadership in Nigeria. And the crisis rocking the People's Democratic Party seems not to have abated, despite the intervention of the governors under the platform of the party. throwing their weight behind Sunday Ude Okoye as the authentic national secretary of the party. A faction of the party loyal to the embattled National Secretary Samuel Anyanwu has rejected the decision of the PDP Governors Forum, saying it runs contrary to the party's constitution and does not recognize a valid court ruling on the matter, which earlier called for a stay of execution.
It's high time we say we don't want to remain silent any longer, to allow people that claim to love PDP, that parade themselves as lovers of PDP, to go ahead, carry narrative, deceiving party faithfuls in Nigerians and abroad and Nigerians. We only have PDP, and that's why we said today we are going to expose those weeds in PDP. We are calling on the Taraba State Governor specifically to speak out regarding this section. He was the state chairman of PDP, contested, won the primary, contested the governorship, won the election. He still remained the chairman, functioning as the state chairman. We insist that Senator Samuel Enemeka Anyanwu remains the authentic PDP National Secretary in line with the party constitution and other existing laws of the land.
Away from that now, the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress in the 2023 elections, Omoyele Sowore, was reportedly attacked by suspected thugs at the Lagos City Marathon on Saturday morning. Sowore and members of his media crew were assaulted while participating in the event. The attackers also targeted journalists covering the marathon, injuring several and destroying cameras and other equipment. To the energy sector now. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has denied allegations that it is selling substandard petrol in a high burn rate. In a statement on Saturday, NNPCL spokesperson Olufemi Shoneye dismissed a viral video comparing fuel from NNPC and Dangote refineries. A content creator claimed NNPC's petrol lasted just 17 minutes in a generator, while Dangote's fuel ran for 33 minutes. NNPCL clarified that the fuel in question was sourced from the Dangote refinery and meets strict industry specifications. The company condemned the video as misleading and warned of legal action against those spreading false claims. Now, NNPC also urged Nigerians to rely on verified information, reaffirming its commitment to fuel quality and consistent supply. And that's all the news for the headlines this morning inside the 10 o'clock hour. We're going to be going back to our previously introduced conversation on tourism here in Nigeria.
Headlines there. It's time for us to talk tourism. Our ladies are joining us, Wonuola, Olatunde-Lamidi, and also Bethia, Idoko. The ladies, they are an expert, they are industry experts, industry leaders in tourism sectors, and they both join us. Ladies, thank you so much for being so patient and for joining us. Let's just get started right away. How would you assess Nigeria's tourism sector in its current state? I'm going to start with you, Bethia. You are a traveler. You've traveled the world. You've seen other, tourism sectors.
Oh, Judith, I'm going to help you there. I think there's a problem with your mic. So sorry.
Sorry.
So let me. Now, Bethia, she was directing a question to you earlier. She was asking you how you'd assess Nigeria's tourism sector in this current state, putting into account everything that we might be going through, whether it's terrorism, whether it's bad roads, whether it's everything. Bethia, please. Hello, Bethia.
We're not where we used to be.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Go ahead.
Okay. First thing I'll say is we're not where we used to be as regards tourism. Prior to now, it sounded very weird to say, oh, I'm traveling for tourism somewhere around Nigeria. But now we see people actually taking local trips to see different destinations of Nigeria. It's slow, but then I think it's a bit steady, and social media has really helped with this because it was just a faster way for people to see other parts of the country that they previously knew nothing about. Personally, it was social media for me. When I started to see places in Nigeria I never knew existed, and I decided to venture out and go see them for myself. But where I think we still have problems, and it'll be better, is if the government steps in just a little bit. There seems to be a lot of negligence when it comes to the tourism sector. It's treated like one of those sectors, not like a sector that can actually do a lot for Nigeria. But I think if government stepped in, and then if there was a way to market some of these places we have, as opposed to people like Wonuola and I selling destinations locally, it would be a lot better. Also, infrastructure. I mean, that has always been a problem that we're still yet to get around 100%. If we had better infrastructure around some of these places, and by that I mean like proper accommodation, things like maybe hospitals, grocery stores, some of the really amazing tourist destinations we have in Nigeria are in very isolated places where you need to be very audacious to go to because you don't have proper accommodation around them and things like that. So, I mean, this is something that I think can be worked on to improve our tourism sector. But thankfully, Dirty December is doing an amazing job of putting us in a much better light internationally. At least people are beginning to see that it's not as dangerous as it seemed, or things are getting better because it's just one great report or another from people coming in for Dirty December. So I think that's an opportunity and an avenue for the government to latch onto and do a lot when it comes to tourism, as opposed to just leaving it on the side or combining it with a bunch of other ministries. Thankfully now at least we have a standalone ministry for tourism.
Right.
So yeah.
Wonuola Olatunde-Lamidi. I just wanted to apologize. I said Olatunji earlier. So Lamidi. There we go. She's a co-founder of Diamonds and Pearls Travels. So basically, you provide services, whether it's ticketing, selling these locations, or just getting tour guide, or just selling out tours. And so I have to ask you about the type of tourism that is better suited to Nigeria, that is most promising for Nigeria's future. Would you say it's ecotourism, cultural tourism, or luxury? Because we like that word around here, luxury tourism.
Okay, so I didn't hear the first one. I heard eco. I didn't hear the second one.
Eco, cultural, and luxury.
Okay, so the Nigerian tourism sector is actually growing. And one of the things that Nigeria actually has are two major things: the people and the beaches. Now, when I say the people, it's the people that drive the culture, and currently that is what is selling in the Nigerian tourism ecosystem. It's our culture, and under our culture, I'll divide it into our music, our fashion, our food. It brings a lot of people from outside Nigeria into Nigeria to experience these things. And these are actually currently our greatest exports. And you see a lot of countries, requesting for more Nigerian music, our fashion, and our food. So right now, what we're actually really concentrating on is our cultural tourism. Now, under ecotourism, we need to do much more. We need to do more preservation of the trees. We need to make sure our beaches are clean. We're not doing a lot with that. And there's actually a lot of tourism around the beaches in Nigeria. You all see what Landmark did with the beach in Lagos. You're seeing what the Legoshi Beach is doing, where we're having so many beach clubs and lounges. Now, Nigerians like enjoyment. And anything that has to do with that is where you see Nigerians veering to, and that's what the beaches bring. Another thing that Nigerians like, we like good food. We like luxury, to be honest. We like to go into a hotel, and the hotel is looking nice and looking clean, and has this luxury vibes. And social media has also helped to spread that a lot. It has helped to spread luxury in tourism in the Nigerian ecosystem. So I would say that right now we're actually doing the three, which is ecotourism, cultural tourism, and luxury tourism. But we can do much more, and we can use that to promote Nigeria as a destination for domestic tourism and even for international visitors.
I hear what you say about the beaches, but unfortunately, you know where I'm going to go from here on, don't you? I've been to the Gambia, and I know the only thing the Gambia has is a stretch of beach, and it is fantastic. Yep. People come from all across the world just to sit on the beach and walk across the water.
Accessibility.
Or not walk, just walk on the water. Here in Nigeria, we had the facilities, like you mentioned, but it seems like while the rest of the world is recovering from maybe climate change or this or that, just like World Global Tourism Resilience Day celebrating, we are recovering from bad governance decisions, bad government decisions, where we had the beach totally wiped out when it came to that fantastic facility you mentioned there. So what policy changes do you think could be made or suggested to the authorities to make Nigeria great again, Nigerian tourism great again, where we can see a dirty December all across all 12 months of the year when it comes to tourism? What must change?
Okay, so first of all,
yes, well, go ahead.
Should I go ahead?
Please do.
Okay, so first of all, the government needs to put tourism at the forefront. And what we're seeing the new Minister of Tourism doing, Barrister Hannatu Musawa, what she's doing now is she's trying to make sure that tourism in Nigeria is something that Nigerians themselves embrace. So that's number one. Number two, we're seeing a lot of states like Akwa Ibom, Lagos State, Cross River, really pushing tourism within Nigeria so that Nigerians themselves can experience it and even bring outsiders. So government has to put it at the forefront. That's number one. Number two, we need to increase security. People don't really, can't really move around from state to state without having it at the back of their mind that, hey, something is going to happen to me, or Boko Haram and all that. Security needs to be at the forefront. Another thing is accessibility, creating good roads so that people can travel easily and travel safely. Another problem we have in Nigeria is proper maintenance. We don't maintain things properly. And that's why you see that at a particular time, one place is trending, and before you know it is dilapidated. A lot of all these tourism sites, when you go there, you see that it's like a shanty area. You don't have proper water, you don't have proper toilet facilities. So you actually see a lot of dirt and, defecation around the place. And it wouldn't encourage people to go there. So we need to get the locals involved in tourism. You need to get the locals to own tourism. Let the locals know that this place is for us, Olumo Rock is for us. This Badagry, this Badagry Slave Museum is for us. It is in our area. It is our own responsibility to maintain it. So we need to get to a point where we have government and local participation. The government and the private sector have to merge together to make all the tourism sites in Nigeria worth going to and interesting to look at and even want to promote on social media. Another problem we have in the tourism sector is inadequate funding. We don't have enough funding for tourism, and that's because it's not one of the front burner issues for the government. And then, of course, corruption. I don't want to talk so much about that, but you understand what I mean by corruption. And also proper checks and balances. What do I mean by that? Cross-checking tourism sites, making sure they're okay, good for use, rating hotels properly. Not a hotel will say they are 4-star. When you get there, it's a 2-star with mosquitoes, no net, and the tiles and the bathroom are just looking awful. So there's so much that we can do, and I believe that we have started. It's slow, but it can be done.
It's slow, but it can be done indeed. I mean, Nigerians already have a lackadaisical attitude when it comes to our infrastructure. We saw the vandalism that happened in Abuja, that those vandalists had to be arraigned when they vandalized, pipelines and electricity cables. The list is endless. But Bethia, let me come to you, right? The industry, the travel industry is evolving, and with that means more tourists want to opt for very personalized experiences, whether it's a boat cruise, or family thing or couples thing. There are people that are opting for more, a safari view, they want to do more of that. And so I had to ask you, the intersection of personalized travel experiences and sustainable tourism, how can Nigerian tourism stakeholders adopt these trends?
So when Wonu was speaking, she said something very important about we have beaches, how our beaches being taken care of. When I was little, I mean, my parents would take us to the beach at least once or twice every month on Saturdays. These were part of the things that were very normal growing up in Lagos. But these days now, our beaches are being... Now I want to go to the beach, like just get up, and how we could drive to the beach easily back in the day. We don't really have a lot now anymore to go to. I mean, all the moist beaches, the soul beaches, the landmark beaches, I mean, they're all gone. Now I want to go to the beach, maybe just Elegushi. Now, these were personal experiences for families. But now taking it on a much larger scale, and you see, I never like to overlook Nigeria when it comes to local tourism. You see, we are over 200 million in number. So only Nigerians, like if 5% of Nigerians traveled locally every year, that's a lot for tourism. It's a lot of money generated for the government. But I don't understand why till now it's still being overlooked. Yeah, we want foreigners to come to our country and see the beauty that it is that we have in so many parts of the country. But even before the foreigners, just us as locals, over 200 million people, 5% of us, 10% of us to travel every year locally is a lot of money. And it will be a lot for the country in the tourism sector. But what is being done to encourage this is where I think we have the real disconnect. Like I said, thankfully for social media now, at least it's easy to be in Lagos and find out about Mambila in Taraba. Personally, I traveled 25 states in Nigeria. So I've been around to a lot of the sites that prior to social media, I never knew existed. It's a tool that can be used. But like I said, if infrastructure is put in place, I'll give you a simple example. When I went to Fariruwa in Nasarawa, I had to walk almost 2 hours to get to the waterfall. Now, in this 2-hour hike, you are just in between bushes. There's nothing. There are no stores. God forbid something happens. There's no form of first aid. I can't buy any food. I have to come with all of my food. And then that walk is Herculean. I hear now the road has kind of been constructed to some extent. But then there are not a lot of people who are willing to walk for almost 2 hours just to go see a waterfall. Some people are not even physically capable. It was the same thing when I went to Owu Waterfall in Kwara. So it makes it more difficult for people to access these places. Plus, what is there in place for revenue collection or generation from this place is absolutely nothing. So it's not just about me going there to go see the place. How can money be made for the government by me going to see the place? If there were hotels close by, I can lodge there. If there were restaurants, I can buy food. If there were proper tour operators where I have to pay or who I have to pay to take me to the place as opposed to getting lost until I find my way. These are all money generating forms for tourism. But none of this is properly harnessed, none at all. Asop Waterfalls, just heading to Jos. Most people say it's in Jos, well, in Jos. However, I mean, you can just walk there and go see it and go to where you're going to. You don't pay anything to anybody. There's nothing around for money generation. So I just feel like we're just leaving a lot of money sleeping on the table just because maybe our government hasn't fully understood how important tourism is and the amount of money that can be made locally from tourism. So I think it's difficult to disconnect the government from it, but then at the same time, what we can do on our own, slowly, like Wonu said, it's slow, but it's working. However, if we had more help from the government, if the government was more included in this sector, and by that I mean by what they are doing, I think we would have gotten further than we are now. But then, like I keep saying also, I'm so grateful for Dirty December. Like, I just think it's one of the best things that has happened to the image of Nigeria, globally.
You all like Dirty December a bit too much, including my co-host here, Judith. This Dirty December thing is too much. Let me add one more location to that list you reeled out there, Bethia. Gurara Waterfalls, such a shame. Beautiful place.
Amazing.
Nothing between Abuja and that place. It's unfortunate. But I want to give you an assignment now. The assignment is this: if the rest of the world, for global tourism resilience day, is celebrating the fact that you can bounce back from natural disasters or maybe climate change, Nigeria in our case, we're bouncing back perhaps from bad government decisions. What would you do to this location that has seen over the years, over decades, it's seen itself under the radar when it comes to government's interest in this location? And I'm talking about Makoko. Because it seems that people want to experience what this place, this Venice of Africa is, but the government doesn't seem to understand the potential that lie therein.
Do they? Because do they? Because it's poverty porn.
No. Well, call it poverty porn, Judith. But the fact is, it interests people. It attracts people from across the world. They're coming. There's potential there. So when, as tourism minister, not saying that you want to usurp anybody's position, what would you do with Makoko?
So the truth is that most of the countries we visit, especially in Africa, are usually villages. Zanzibar is a village, to be honest, but they found a way to make it attractive to tourists. And we're going to Zanzibar, we're spending our money, and we're staying in beautiful resorts. Now, with Makoko, or with anything that has to do with tourism, or with business, or with life, you must create what you want. So first of all, we must create what the story we want to tell about Makoko.
Exactly.
Even though Makoko is stricken with poverty and all that, there are success stories in Makoko that we can use to tell stories. There are people in Makoko that can come out and tell us about how they started from Makoko and how they moved out of Makoko and how they become established. So number one is let us create a story around Makoko so that we can take people there and let us showcase it. Makoko is mainly, water and people living on water, selling wares, selling food on water. There are things that people want to experience. But you see, when people talk about Makoko, it's always, in a bad way. But there can always be good coming out of every destination. There can always be good coming out of anything. So for Makoko, we need to create a story. What do we want to sell to people? Number one. Number two, there are lives in Makoko. There are children in Makoko. How are we going to be able to bring these children out of Makoko and they become better people, even while in Makoko and when they come out? Now you look around and you see a lot of children, dancing all over the place and creating videos and traveling around the world. Those children came from slums. They came from ghetto areas. And today, a lot of them have stories to tell of how they visited countries like Dubai, France, and so many other destinations just by dancing. We can tell children in Makoko to come up with a product that we can sell to the world and will be written, made in Makoko, just like the way you see every Chinese product made in China. So we can produce things from Makoko. So first of all, we create a story to tell about Makoko. We produce things from Makoko that people will want to buy. And then we take people to Makoko to see the stories that we've talked about and also see the products and how they are being made. So for me, those are ways that we can talk about Makoko. But at the same time, we need to make sure that Makoko is clean, it is safe, and people will actually want to go there. For some people, if they eat in Makoko, they may fall sick because of maybe the water that is used to cook the food and all that, typhoid and all those things. So there has to be, it has to be clean for people to want to go there, for people to want to see it, and for people to want to see the Venice of Nigeria. So those are the two things that I would do. Create a product, a story around Makoko, tell Makoko to create a product that can talk about it, and of course we use social media to push. People do not understand the power of social media. I know that my business personally has gained a lot from using social media to promote tourism. And as Bethia also said, social media has made tourism in Nigeria and even all over the world smaller. You just post a destination, talk about it, and people want to go there. Why? It's visual, and they're also seeing the sense of what kind of pictures can I take there. They're also seeing the sense of security. But a lot of people don't know that to get to some of these destinations, you will trek, and Nigerians don't like trekking. You will suffer sometimes to get there. But it's up to us and up to the government to work together to make this work.
So the synergy is what you're asking for both the public to be able to buy into whatever the government is doing, right? And you're talking about that those ecosystem that should exist around those sites. But, and that but is really huge. Last year is what we saw with the landmark and every other beach houses and beach fronts that we saw at that stretch of road. When you see those type of stories and how those businesses ended, it begs to ask the question whether or not the public can be able to buy into the government or buy into the sentiment of tourism, right? For example, all of these infrastructures that you're naming out, the one in Jos, the one in Plateau, Nasarawa, Abuja, and even Cross River State, To get to the Obudu Ranch, it's a long stretch of road. There is no street that lands around the area, no helipad that lands there. Either you're going through Enugu or you go through Calabar, and you have to see through a 4-hour trip to get to Obudu. So those are the issues that we're having. So how best then can you buy into? What then deters them from selling? Because tourism is a very niche market, and you know, is it guaranteed that people are going to see their money back? Is it guaranteed? Because another thing is, there's also, if we're going to be honest about Dirty December, who are the people that benefited from Dirty December? Generally, Lagos and Abuja. I would say Port Harcourt, but not so much so.
IJGVs,
you know, and it's the IJGVs. You know, they didn't go to all these other sites that we're naming. They went to restaurants and they went for adult entertainment. You know, and so how then are we gonna evolve this thing to get people to buy in and start to build that ecosystem that we talk about? Let me come to you, Bethia, for that question.
So for me, I think the best way we can move with this, like we can go forward with this, I keep saying it, whether we like it or not, when it comes to tourism, it's too big not to have government inclusion. And I think the real problem we're having is the fact that the government is not as included as it is supposed to be. Now, there's only so much private individuals can do. But because tourism is something that borders around, I mean, there has to be land for it to happen. We're talking about destinations. We're talking about location. Now, there are rules bordering around these things. If the government is not involved in something, it's easy for them to just come and say, okay, we are closing this. Everybody buy, go home. But if they have a stake, if they're stakeholders in that particular thing, I'm pretty sure there's a way these laws or rules can be adjusted, you know, to accommodate everyone. So the real problem is the disconnect. It will seem like it's the private sector trying to do more for tourism as opposed to the government. So there's hardly any synergy. If there's a synergy, I promise you, I think a lot of these laws being made, they will be kinder or milder, you know, with them. But when it's like you don't have a stake in it, you are not particularly concerned, and it's not even an area that is the biggest thing for you in Nigeria, it's easy to just put it down. Like what happened with Landmark. I mean, there's a lot of technicalities around it that I probably don't even understand 100%, but I do know that if the government had a stake in Landmark, it would not have gone down the way that it went down.
But yeah, they did, because they created jobs and they paid their tax to the T. You know, so they did.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You know, so for me, there has to be a synergy. There's only so much that we can do as private individuals for tourism. Tourism, at the end of the day, it's a national thing. It's not a personal thing.
Right.
The government cannot be so disconnected from it, which is the real problem that we have. There has to be government inclusion. There has to be synergy with this. That's the only way I see this going forward. And with what happened with Landmark, needless to say, a lot of people are going to be afraid to stake their money, because it's like, how do we know I don't do this, and at the end of the day, my money goes down the drain? But if it's the government that is involved, it's easier for you to say, okay, the government is involved. I feel more comfortable with this one way or another. The government, they have a stake as well. Their money is inside here. They have interest here. So for me, that synergy that is lacking is where we have the problem. As regards this Dirty December, you know, for me, you know, when everywhere is dark and then there's just that ray of sunshine, for me, that's what Dirty December represents. And like you rightly stated, Dirty December can go past Lagos or Abuja. When I saw the figures for what Dirty December brought into Lagos, it was almost unbelievable. For what, 1 month? Now imagine that we can replicate that in more states. And now, at least, like I said earlier, it's demystifying the whole if you come to Nigeria, you will die kind of thing, because all the news that people took back from Dirty December was how amazing, how they had so much fun. People are already buying their tickets against 2026. I had family members who live abroad come to Nigeria for this last Dirty December. And they were so blown away. My niece actually told her mom that for her vacation in May, as opposed to going to Japan, which was already pre-planned, she wants to come back to Nigeria. This is somebody who was born abroad, lived all her life abroad, but then just coming back to Nigeria and experiencing our Nigerianness. It was so much for her, she wants to come back in May. And this is the case for so many other people. So I think this is something the government should capitalize on and not sleep on, to open up this country. We have places in Nigeria. Like if you see some destinations here, it's almost unbelievable. We have crystal clear waters. We have warm springs. If you go to Obudu, it's almost like you are in Hawaii. That's how beautiful that place is. But then again, maintenance of the lodge and the cabin that is there, we also need the government. It hasn't worked privately yet. It hasn't.
Well, ladies, it's been very exciting having this conversation with you.
So I just want to quickly add to what Bethia said.
Real quickly.
Okay, so the truth is that when people see the benefits in doing something, they will continue to do it. Dirty December has actually opened it's like the light bulb moment for the government, and they're seeing that there's actually money to be made in tourism. But first of all, we have to make the government understand how does it benefit the government and the country. Remember, they will also charge taxes to travel companies, to hotels and all that. So taxes is one thing that they're going to gain from tourism. So government needs to understand what is the benefit. And I also advise that anybody that wants to do tourism business in Nigeria should have an insurance. Like what Landmark did, I hope they really had an insurance company that was able to cover all their losses. We need to have insurance. But at the end of the day, people always want to see you start something. They want to see it go well and be successful before you get their buy-in. And I think that is what the private sector needs to do to push tourism properly, so that the government can understand that this is a money-making venture. There's money in tourism, and a lot of countries rely on it. So we need to do the same.
Ladies, we must say thank you. I think that's the reason why with the new move with Landmark, when they're moving to do the other beachfront and the other state, you can see now that's now more of a consortium, so to speak. What's that term? Concession. There we go, between the state governments. But thanks, ladies. Mazina.
Ladies, thank you very much. We'll see you again another time when we talk tourism. Now, we have a very interesting topic coming. Well, perhaps maybe we should get right into it. Maybe we should. Now, very interestingly, this week saw a very interesting turn of events for Nigerian celebrity Two-Face. In recent years, Nigeria has witnessed also a notable increase in divorce rate, which is the subject within, surrounding Two-Face Idibia and Annie. According to a report by Divorce.com, the country's divorce rate reached 2.9% in 2023.
That's very low.
Yeah, well, translating to 1.8 divorce per 1,000 people. This places Nigeria 11th among countries with the highest divorce rates globally. Experts attribute this rise to factors such as increased financial independence among women and a reduced societal stigma surrounding divorce. The 2006 National Population Census data recorded 704,000 divorces in Nigeria, with 230,000 males and 474,000 females. Now, we're going to take a break now, and when we get back, we will be delving into this story. Do stay with us. Welcome again. Taking a break from our previously announced story, let's do this now. Now, Nigeria has lost one of its most fearless voices, a man whose life was a testament to resilience, integrity, and unwavering dedication to justice. And that's Pa Ayo Adebanjo, a pillar of progressive politics and the beacon of Yoruba nationalism, has passed on at the age of 96. His departure marks the end of an era, but his legacy will forever echo in the annals of Nigerian history. Born on April 10, 1928 in Isanya, Ogun State, Pa Adebanjo's journey began in humble surroundings. He relocated to Lagos with his family, where he completed his secondary school education before embarking on a career that would leave an indelible mark on Nigerian political landscape. Starting as a journalist, he quickly transitioned into law and politics, becoming a formidable force in the fight against colonialism and the quest for independence. As an organizing secretary of the Action Group in the 1950s, he was instrumental in mobilizing support against colonial rule, laying the groundwork for Nigeria's sovereignty.
He's also a devoted disciple of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Pa Adebanjo was a staunch advocate of Awoism, embracing the principles of federalism, social welfare, and equitable governance. His unwavering commitment to these ideals was evident throughout his tenure as a leader of the Afenifere, the Pan-African Yoruba Social-Cultural Organization. Under his guidance, Afenifere championed the causes of democracy, justice, and the restructuring of Nigeria to reflect true federalism. Even in the face of adversity, his voice remained a calm call for unity and progress. Pa Adebanjo's life was a chronicle of activism and principled leadership. He stood firm against military dictatorships, advocating for the restoration of democratic governance during some of Nigeria's darkest periods. His legal acumen and journalistic powers were tools he wielded effectively in the battle against oppression and injustice. As a close associate of Chief Awolowo, he played a pivotal role in the political movements that sought to retrench democratic values and regional autonomy in Nigeria.
So in recognition of his relentless pursuit of justice and equity, Pa Adebanjo was celebrated as an epitome of integrity and courage. His contemporaries and the younger generation alike revered him as a custodian of Yoruba heritage and a national icon. His recent 96th birthday was marked by accolades that underscored his contributions to Nigeria's socio-political development. Today, as we bid farewell to this titan, we reflect on a life dedicated to the service of humanity and the betterment of society. Pa Ayo Adebanjo did not merely witness history, he shaped it with unwavering determination and an unyielding commitment to truth. His legacy serves as a guiding light for future generations, a testament to the power of conviction and the enduring impact of a life lived in pursuit of justice. So, we say, rest in peace, Baba. Your legacy remains our guiding star.
Indeed. Rest in peace to the Pa Ayo Adebanjo.
It's very interesting how through the week this was a very major part, well, at least at the end of the week when the information hit media, and how people rallied around. We had Agbalani, our correspondent, over at his residence, and he brought us a report of how many people, what the atmosphere was like, and how interestingly people continued to troop in to sign the register that was opened at his residence.
A life well lived, a life of service, a life of activism, a life of advocacy against oppression and you know, depression, oppression, neocolonialism, and also just championing the cause for true federalism, and also being a staunch believer in the Awoism as well, and being one of the pioneer leaders of Afenifere. And so this is a son of the soil for the Yoruba nation and entire. And I mean by Yoruba nation, I mean, you know, the indigents of the Yoruba culture. And so this is a stalwart that has been lost, and I would only imagine, I think that the family should take a sense of pride knowing that, you know, the legacy of their patriarch is impeccable, and
lives on.
And lives on way past them. That's a life of, it's all we aspire to become, you know, to lead that.
Oh, yes, indeed. Well, we're going to move on now to something very interesting that we had earlier introduced, and this is the situation surrounding the Two-Face issue.
Oh, no.
Let's talk about that, you and I did it while we're waiting for our guests to actually join us. Because
why you put him in a spot?
It's an interesting thing that happened through the week regarding Two-Face and his missing now, in quotes, is what they say.
I have solved this mystery. I don't know why. They should put a bounty on this man and see if I don't find it.
Put a bounty, we'll find Two-Face Bethia. But then again, I solved it earlier when I told that he just wants a little bit of, you know, alone time with him and his new mistress.
Yeah.
It was February 14th, remember? Isn't she? That's what she is until he gets married to her. And that is that's the issue here. Getting married to an individual when you're already married. People have brought that and said, hey, you can't do that. There must be a law against it.
Oh, I get it now.
And there is a law against it. I agree with you, and that's what people have been talking about. However, you have to ask the question. I don't know. I don't know how. I'm not too sure. Are they legally married, Two-Face and Annie? Because the audacity with which he proposed to
legally married to Annie?
To Annie, are they legal? I mean, are there documents? Are they law documents? Most people will present to you a white wedding. They didn't tell you whether they signed in court.
But they did. There are pictures that are littered.
There are. I want to see this now.
There are pictures that are littered on social media.
I'm going to make sure that this is. That's the Two-Face Adibia, Annie Macaulay, pictures, court wedding. If anything comes up, then I stand to be corrected. But no. All I see are traditional pictures. There is
his white wedding and his...
This was destination white wedding.
Yeah, it was a destination white wedding.
Where is the court paper? The Nigerian
What are you talking about?
Paper?
What are you doing, man?
Because if he's not legally married in a court in Nigeria, then he is allowed to get married.
Have you forgotten the customary marriage court system as well?
See, these are these.
Yeah, because and you know the funny thing is, there's now a trajectory where people are getting married traditionally than the white wedding itself.
It's preferable now.
Yeah, because it's preferable because it actually has more.
Because you can always just jump out of a traditional marriage.
No, you cannot.
Oh yes, you can. Oh yes, you can. So if he's supposed to remarry, it's a crime if he is still married to get married to another person, unless he has gone through with a divorce.
Well, I want to.
And the question is, what can Annie Idibia do if they are legally married and he has proposed to somebody else? Can she sue? Is she allowed to sue? Do our laws actually carry through with that, with the statements you sign to when you're getting married?
So one thing I realized from this conversation is that I don't know too well about marriages.
You know what I mean? Like the process.
You know what I mean? Like I really don't know that much about it, even though I have two siblings that are married, younger siblings that are married, and I walk through them the entire process. But I honestly just realized that I actually don't know anything about this situation, and I never really asked. And that's, anyway,
therein is the issue. That's why there's so many tongues wagging in this situation.
I don't know anything, but here's what I will say in this situation. I would like for Annie to remove herself completely from this. I would like for her and the children to be removed from this conversation entirely. What I see is a man who is on a train that is moving at a speed of lightning. Because what you are telling to the world is that you are not a devoted husband, or devoted father, or a devoted lover or a partner. That is what you're showing, because in just barely weeks of you saying you're going to divorce this woman, you went again. You know, that means so everything that she said was true. You affirmed everything that she said, you know. So I will say this to the family of Annie Idibia, and I'll say this, Annie Macaulay at this point. I'm not going to call her Idibia anymore.
Okay.
Annie Macaulay, to her family and her friends and the loved ones, please do not pay any mind to what this man does in the public space anymore. I want you to please remove yourself from this whole equation. You have charted the course to remove yourself from public eye and rehabilitate and get better. And by rehabilitate, I mean your mental health, and just, you know, do well for yourself in terms of taking good care of yourself and cocooning yourself in wrapping yourself in love and support and that family. Lean into that and come out the Annie Macaulay, the it girl that we knew in the early 2000s, because you're a bad bee. You know what I mean? Like, I know you, like you're an it girl, okay? Takara, don't let any man sleep on you. That's what I gotta say. That's what I gotta say.
I forget the region of the country you both are from, which would define your solidarity for her.
I'm a woman now.
But I will say this: I am not taking sides in this.
I take sides.
However, what do we not know is the question.
What do you mean by that? Come on now.
Not know? Especially that Two-Face has never come out to tell specifics of his relationship with his wife, which is what a good man should do.
A good man should do. That man has 4 children before his wife with Annie. He doesn't have to. He's a celebrity.
Do we not?
We already know.
If we know what we don't know, will it change the dynamics of things? That's one thing I keep.
Absolutely not. It would not change the dynamics of anything, because he has, by his actions, he has said what he doesn't need to say. Because you are barely divorced this woman, barely weeks of you divorced her, of claiming you're going to divorce her. Then you came out and said it was a lie, you were hacked. You now went to go and propose to another woman.
Show, I am sorry. Only for the sake of
no, now we are debating. We've
had quite a weekend here this weekend since yesterday. We'd like to say thank you to the viewers who stuck around all the way till the end. Next weekend we'll be bringing you another installment for Breakfast Extra, a twofer, so make sure you join us then.
In the meantime, remember that you can tune in bright and early at Monday tomorrow, bright and early at 7 a.m. as Olive and Benga will be on standby to bring you all of the insightful discussion on topical issues that shape the political narrative of Nigeria on Breakfast Central, and it starts from tomorrow Monday all the way to Friday. All right, so we want to see you. Make sure to tune in at 7 all the way down to 9 p.m. For us, it is good night, goodbye. We'll see you on Saturday. Bye now.